Chapter 589. Breakthrough to Heaven Opening Daluo Immortal Realm Perfection. The road to immortal cultivation was long and fraught with obstacles. The ancients said, "An immortal dreams for 3,000 years." This saying was validated in today's celestial spirit great world. After stepping into the nirvana realm, the time scale of cultivators began to lengthen, 100 years as a day, 1,000 years as a dream. For those on the path of immortal Tao, the higher their talent, the faster time passed. After becoming a disciple of the main vein of the Tao court, Xiaolan entered a prolonged period of seclusion. At first, she worried about Guan, fearing that he would pass away during her seclusion. Fortunately, although Guan encountered many setbacks, he always managed to break through. Once Guan successfully achieved nirvana, she completely set her mind at ease and focused on her cultivation. Tens of thousands of years passed in the blink of an eye, and although the human world underwent tremendous changes like the transformation of the sea into mulberry fields, there were not many changes in the immortal cultivation realm. That year, Xiaolan encountered a breakthrough opportunity. Under the protection of the great cultivators of the main vein, she successfully stepped into the wandering immortal realm, while Guan watched from a distance. He marveled at the uniqueness of the new era. Living for 10,000 years to reach wandering immortal realm was rare in the previous era, but in this new one, such geniuses were not few. Blood Prison Great Saint and an Xian even reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm one after another. Tao treasures greatly aided their cultivation, added with the abundant spiritual energy of the Taoist field of the beginningless, containing the true meaning of the great Tao. Their cultivation speed was ever increasing. Especially an Xian who seemed to be transforming into an Hao. Though Guan felt that he contributed significantly to his disciples' progress, thinking of the past, he still had many reflections. I should also break through a minor realm. Guan watched Xiaolan consolidating her cultivation level at the horizon and made up his mind. Source: web novel. Com, updated on Omicron New. He originally wanted to rely on his enlightenment to break through. However, for a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, breaking through a minor realm required much more time than he could imagine. Having thought that, Guan directly switched identities, his original body leaping out of the little world. Among the cultivators protecting Xiaolan, the strongest had reached the Tao Void Profound Immortal Realm. This person did not detect any abnormalities and remained focused on Xiaolan. Guan's original body arrived at a forest in the human world, where he directly performed a lifespan breakthrough. 9 options appeared before him again. Most of the locations were ones he recognized. Guan's gaze fell on Desperate Celestial Tomb. The sins within the Desperate Celestial Tomb had a mysterious cause and effect with him. He originally thought he could learn about it through lifespan reincarnation, but he did not. Let's take another look. Now that his realm was higher, maybe he could understand. Guan immediately chose to teleport to the Desperate Celestial Tomb, consuming 100 billion years of lifespan in the process. After a while, Guan opened his eyes and immediately activated the lifespan barrier. What entered his sight was the desolate scene of the Desperate Celestial Tomb, with colossal and ruined structures stretching all the way to the ends of heaven and earth. The grand palace where the sin resided was far from him, but he could easily see the situation of that palace. The immense door, still slightly ajar, stretched as dark as if leading to the gates of hell. Guan didn't keep staring at that palace. He pulled up the attribute panel. See the novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 34 362/487 609 219 005. Physique: primordial reincarnation undying body. Cultivation level: late stage of heaven opening Daluo immortal realm. He directly invested lifespan into his cultivation level, in increments of 100 billion years each time. Prompt after prompt appeared. With 480 billion years of lifespan at his disposal, Guan barely heeded the failure notifications. Eventually, after spending 110 billion years of lifespan, he successfully reached the perfection of heaven-opening Daluo immortal realm. Next would be observing the consumption of the lifespan barrier. Vast spiritual energy surged from the ground. Almost instantly, Guan was enveloped by golden illumination of the great Tao. The Tao spiritual energy of the entire Desperate Celestial Tomb showed anomalies, and even the Tao rules trembled. Now that he was a heaven-opening Daluo immortal, the disturbances he caused far exceeded those of before, and more ancient buildings began to tremble. The ground heaved with sand, moving as if it had sentience, appearing like a yellow cloth rising. Since it was a breakthrough in a minor realm, Guan didn't need to be completely focused on the breakthrough. He divided his attention towards the grand palace where the sin resided. Time ticked by. In half an hour, Guan would succeed in his breakthrough, yet halfway through the sin still did not appear. Could something have gone wrong? Guan thought silently. Even when he succeeded in his breakthrough, the sin never emerged from that grand palace. The lifespan barrier consumed nearly 500 billion years of lifespan, which stung quite a bit for Guan. The higher the realm, the greater the lifespan barrier's consumption, and for safety he activated the lifespan barrier every time he broke through. The reason for this was quite simple. Guan enjoyed observing others and he spied on existences of lower realms without being detected, so naturally, there must be existences stronger than him who also enjoyed spying on those weaker than themselves. The purpose of the lifespan barrier was to prevent him from being observed while gaining strength. This was crucial. Guan could reach this point today. Those enemies he had defeated found it incredible, and the lifespan barrier played a critical role in this. Guan felt disappointed that he hadn't seen Zue. Although the desperate celestial tomb was constantly showing signs of disturbance, there seemed to be no signs of living beings, not even ghosts or evil spirits. Once Guan's cultivation level had stabilized, he stood up. Before leaving, he covered the entire desperate celestial tomb with his divine sense. Since it was a tomb, something must have been buried here. The grand palace where Zue resided wasn't the most mysterious. At the center of the world, Guan spotted a deep hole over 1,000 miles in diameter, bottomless and swirling with a special Tao spiritual qi. This was the first time Guan, who had begun to understand different Tao, had encountered such Tao spiritual qi. It was eerie, ominous, and sent shivers down one's spine. Even Guan, who had reached the perfection of the heaven-opening Daoyuo immortal realm, had an intuition not to come into contact with this Tao. He was about to teleport back when he suddenly sensed movement. Something in the deep hole was rushing towards the surface. As it ascended, the invisible and intangible Tao spiritual qi surged like erupting core fire, unstoppable. The ground began to tremble violently. Guan wasn't panicking. He stood within the lifespan barrier, hidden from detection, but he still prepared to teleport away immediately if needed. With a bang, sand flew upwards from the ground violently, the clouds at the horizon dispersed, and an object burst out of the deep hole, aiming to break through the sky. However, when it reached a certain height, it was stopped by an invisible barrier. Narrowing his eyes, Guan saw that it was a forefinger, dark red throughout, with a tip sharp as a knife, 1,000 feet long, emanating a terrifying aura. The might displayed by this forefinger was not inferior to the early stage of the Taiqing Golden Immortal Realm, but the Tao spiritual qi surrounding it was even more dreadful. After being halted, the forefinger fell down, eventually crashing into a ruined temple and raising a cloud of dust tens of thousands of feet high. Guan used the lifespan detection on this finger, but found nothing indicating that it wasn't a living being. He turned his head in another direction. A faint aura emitted from the grand palace where Zue resided. Soon a figure peeked through the door crack. Zue. He still appeared to be just over 10 years old, unchanged from the last time Guan had seen him. Zue, Nirvana Realm 0/9999/9999. His age was still 0, his lifespan and maximum lifespan unchanged. Guan grew more curious. What exactly was this state? Under his gaze, Zue took a deep breath as if bracing himself, and then ran towards the direction where the 1,000-foot forefinger had fallen. The little guy was fast, covering 100 miles in one step as if blinking across space. Before long, he reached near the 1,000-foot forefinger, slowed his steps and cautiously approached. When he stood before the 1,000-foot forefinger, it was as if facing a giant mountain. He reached out to touch the 1,000-foot forefinger. Guan frowned and subconsciously looked down at his own right forefinger. He actually felt his forefinger being touched. With his high cultivation level, he couldn't be mistaken. Could this 1,000-foot forefinger be his own? As Zue touched the 1,000-foot forefinger, his eyes welled up, and he murmured something in a language not of the celestial spirit great world. As his tears fell on the 1,000-foot forefinger, the bizarre Tao spiritual qi on the finger surged towards him, seemingly wishing to transform him into another kind of creature. Guan's eyebrows furrowed. He felt a strong sense of cause and effect. That was not his finger. It belonged to an old acquaintance, not from his past life but from his reincarnation body. It was Fairy Yao Xian, who he had met in his previous lifespan reincarnation. Fairy Yao Xian, in her attempt to save his reincarnation body, the Emperor of Eternal Life, had fallen into the Tao, condemned to eternal oblivion, her cause and effect hard to trace. If it weren't for the Emperor of Eternal Life using the power of the great cause and effect steel, it would have been impossible to capture even a sliver of Fairy Yao Xian's cause and effect. Through Shenzhen, the Emperor of Eternal Life sent Fairy Yao Xian's cause and effect to Guan, the real persona, which established a causal relationship between Fairy Yao Xian and Guan. This process, too complex to be captured by the naked eye, was nonetheless real. As the relationship between Guan and Shenzhen deepened, his sense of cause and effect connected to Fairy Yao Xian also strengthened. He became increasingly certain that the 1,000-foot forefinger was indeed Fairy Yao Xian's. If so, what was the relationship between Zue and Fairy Yao Xian? Could it be? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 590 The Origin of the White Spirit Sword. Guan recalled the life of the Emperor of Eternal Life, and indeed, he had a relationship with Fairy Yao Xian. With their cultivation levels, whether they conceived a child depended on their will. He felt that the child was likely the Emperor of Eternal Lives, and that was why he felt some sort of cause and effect relationship with the child. As his cultivation level broke through, this feeling grew even stronger. He continued to watch the child, whose hands were pressed against the 1,000-zhang index finger, weeping softly. The child didn't seem to feel some force entering his body. He was only indulging in venting his emotions. Guan was curious in his heart whether a lifespan breakthrough could teleport someone out. Just as this thought arose, he received an answer. No. This answer inexplicably appeared in his mind, probably a response from the lifespan breakthrough. With the answer, he dared not act rashly. The desperate celestial tomb was not simple. This place was like a sealed land, unable to be exited directly. As time passed, the child stopped crying. He leaned against the finger wall, slowly closed his eyes, and seemed to fall into a deep sleep. Guan began to deduce the child's destiny, but just as before, he couldn't calculate anything. He again looked toward the 1,000-zhang index finger and continued to deduce. Source: web novel. Com, updated on N0 New. Guan suddenly made a sound of surprise and his expression turned grave. This 1,000-zhang index finger would later break out of the desperate celestial tomb and descend onto the great thousand world. It would bring a great catastrophe to all heavens and myriad realms. Guan saw countless beings fall into evil, and he saw a dark force swallowing up pieces of the great thousand world. He stopped deducing, his brow deeply furrowed. This index finger belonged to Fairy Yao Xian. Relying on it, Guan might be able to find Fairy Yao Xian in the future. But it would bring irreparable disaster to countless beings, meaning Guan could not take it out. After much thought, Guan decided to leave the 1,000-zhang index finger and the child be for the time being. To prevent himself from wavering, Guan chose to teleport back. This teleportation used another 10 billion years of his lifespan. Now, however, he had reached the perfection of the heaven-opening Daluo immortal realm, and just crossing a minor realm had greatly advanced his strength. When he returned to the celestial spirit great world and opened his eyes, the environment around him hadn't changed, but he felt that the celestial spirit great world had weakened. It was so fragile that a single thought from him could shatter this part of the great thousand world. He walked in a direction, ready to enjoy nature and wait for Xiaolan to fully stabilize her cultivation level before returning. The path of cultivation was like a river, with countless cultivators sailing on it. Some people sailed faster, some overtook others, and some capsized, plunging to the riverbed. Guan looked down at the myriad beings of the celestial spirit great world, contemplating the various states of life, a process that helped him understand the essence of the world. The birth of heaven and earth was not difficult for him, but the operation of the rules of heaven and earth contained a deeper level of Tao intent. The heavens and earths were innumerable, yet their operational rules were mostly similar. In the midst of it, perhaps there was an even more transcendent power supporting everything. Guan thought of the mysterious great Tao aura on the 1,000-zhang index finger. What kind of great Tao was it, and why was it so peculiar? After breaking through to the wandering immortal realm, Xiaolan was extremely excited and dragged Guan to visit Sage Su and their fellow disciples. SEA the Novel Fire, net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Sage Su and the other traveling immortal instructors had long known that this day would come, but they didn't expect it so soon. When Xiaolan was in the Qi cultivation realm, Sage Su was already in the wandering immortal realm. Yet when Xiaolan reached the wandering immortal realm, Sage Su was still in the wandering immortal realm. Even if the mentor-disciple relationship was as good as it got, Sage Su still felt a bit mixed inside, yet she hid her emotions very well. Standing on the side as a bystander, Guan watched these people congratulating Xiaolan, thinking with a sigh how life was unfair, and he found it quite amusing. Afterward, Xiaolan wished to return to Xiao Manor for a visit, and Sage Su had no objections. With the cultivation level Xiaolan now possessed, she was capable of standing on her own. After Sage Su gave her several reminders, she watched Xiaolan and her companion leave. A middle-aged female cultivator remarked with emotion, "Even though she has become a loose immortal, she still treats that kid Guan like a treasure. I really don't know what kind of enchanting potion Guan fed her." Before Xiaolan entered the loose immortal stage, they all worried that Guan would be a drag on her. Now they only marveled at Xiaolan's deep affection for Guan. Such emotions were rare indeed. If they could keep this up, it would indeed be a beautiful tale. On the way back it was still Xiaolan riding the clouds, her mood somewhat uneasy. The excitement brought on by her breakthrough was replaced by the nervous emotion of returning home. Thousands of years had passed, and her parents had long since departed this life. She already knew this, and she feared that Xiao Manor might no longer exist, that the descendants of the Xiao family might have forgotten her. "Don't worry, there won't be any issues. It's said that prodigies have their own destiny. This force, invisible and intangible, can protect those around them," Guan consoled. Xiaolan looked at Guan and asked curiously, "Brother Gu, don't you have any regrets?" From childhood, Guan had always been there for her. She had never seen him sad or disheartened, not even angry. He always remained gentle, cheerful, not a hint of negative emotion could be seen on him. Thinking about it now, Guan seemed unrealistically perfect. The curiosity in Xiaolan's eyes grew even thicker, as if she wanted to see right through Guan. "Of course, I have regrets. Everything you've experienced I have already been through. Once you've been through a lot and learned to let go, you won't feel as upset," Guan replied. This puzzled Xiaolan even more, and she asked, "You're only 20 years older than me, how can you speak as if you were thousands of years older than me?" Guan laughed and said, "In dreams I've experienced more than you." "Really? Laner, have you ever thought about your goal in immortal cultivation?" "I actually have." "Let's hear it." "I want to be the master of the Dao court," Xiaolan said with a proud smile, and seeing her smile, Guan felt a bit dazed. Yilan always loved to chase after power. It seemed some things remained unchanged by the cycles of reincarnation. Chasing power wasn't a bad thing. People should always have goals in life. "I hope to see you succeed in my lifetime," Guan sincerely said, making Xiaolan feel the pressure. Yes, her future was bright, but the same couldn't be said for Guan. Xiaolan feared that Guan would be saddened, so she started to change the subject. The prodigies of the primordial era were far stronger than those of the previous era, and the path to fame was naturally tougher. Xiaolan's reputation had already spread within the Dao court, but in the eyes of the world she was still unknown. She prepared to venture out for trials, to compete for treasures, to punish the wicked and eliminate evil, just like the immortals in the stories. However, she was somewhat worried about Guan. Guan said she could go with peace of mind and that he would wait for her in the cave mansion, which relieved her considerably. Trials for treasures inevitably meant battle. She couldn't guarantee Guan's safety, but she also feared he might overthink it, leaving her hesitant. "By the way, Brother Gu, what is the origin of this white spirit sword?" Xiaolan asked out of curiosity. She had already discovered there was something unique about the white spirit sword. "The person who gave me this sword said it was from an immortal. I didn't believe it until I followed you on the path of cultivation. Its origins are for you to discover." "I'm not capable of that," Guan answered. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 591. With sentiment and without sentiment. Thousands of years had passed, and Xiao Manor indeed had changed beyond recognition, now known as Xiao City, the strongest cultivation family in the region. Despite their eminent status, the descendants of the Xiao family always remembered Xiaolan, and her portrait still stood in the ancestral hall for posterity to worship. Xiaolan looked at the excited descendants of the Xiao family and thought of her brothers and sisters. The newly initiated wandering immortal couldn't help but become teary-eyed. Her cultivation level was high and she had lived longer than the members of the Xiao family, but in reality she had faced too few hardships and spent the majority of her life in seclusion, so she still had the temperament of a young girl. Guan watched Xiaolan being surrounded by her descendants, his face filled with a smile. The Yilan of his past life had once dreamed of such a scene. Unfortunately, she had no living family, let alone descendants. Xiaolan stayed in Xiao City for a whole month, and all the citizens knew that the old ancestor of the Xiao family had returned. Even cultivators from other cities and sects came to visit. During that month, although Guan could see Xiaolan every day, they did not spend as much time together as in the past. Not because Xiao Lan deliberately neglected him but because the Xiao family members were too enthusiastic. When they left Xiao City, Xiao Lan stood on cloud mists, raised her arms and laughed loudly. From now on, I have a new goal, not only to be the master of the Dao court but also to help the Xiao family become an eternally thriving cultivation family. Her whole being was full of fighting spirit, and an aura unique to great talents appeared on her. As for Xiao Lan's lofty ambition, Guan thought it was good, as it was a common human sentiment, just like how he would take care of the supreme sect. Guan also knew his own problems, always saying he would not interfere, yet he couldn't help but take action. Long Teng was the best example. No matter how high the cultivation level of a Taoist, they would always look after those close to them. Source: web novel. Com, updated on Omicron New. Guan suddenly thought of a question. Is it better for immortal gods to be affectionate or indifferent? Are heavenly Tao and great Tao affectionate? Guan fell into deep thought, while Xiao Lan, unaware of what he was thinking, continued to express her lofty ambitions, as if shouting them could make heaven and earth witness her determination. In the Taizong imperial dynasty, inside the great hall of the palace, thousands of civil and military officials stood on both sides, watching a man dressed in gorgeous silver armor approach. This man was Long Teng, wearing thick silver armor, like a silver dragon wrapped around his body, his helmet adorned with 2 phoenix wings, and a white cape fluttering as if it had a life of its own. At the front of the steps, Li Xiandao, dressed in emperor's robes, looked at Long Teng, his face full of prideful smiles. Yang Jian also stood in the hall, dressed in official robes, not like a military leader, and he sized up Long Teng, nodding slightly. Li Yu, who had accompanied Long Teng to the Dao court previously, was also present, his expression excited, even waving to Long Teng. Long Teng remained calm, walked up to the steps, knelt down and raised his hand to salute Li Xiandao. Li Xiandao smiled and said, "Rise, your battle achievements have satisfied me." Seeing Long Teng stand up, an elderly official took out a scroll and began to read. Admiral Long Teng, who swept through the drowning sea demon domain, beheaded the dark demon emperor, shook the 7 seas, enhanced the holy might of Taizong, is hereby bestowed the title of Admiral of Celestial Praise, ranked 1st grade, to enjoy Taizong's destiny forever, and his divine statue to be listed in the Divine General's mansion. His voice was full of vigor, echoing in the great hall, stirring discussions among the officials. Many were incredulous. They knew the emperor would reward Long Teng generously, but no one expected such treatment for Long Teng. 1st grade nearly second to none. The position of admiral previously only achieved by Yang Jian. Li Xiandao was very pleased with the official's amazement. He aimed to elevate Long Teng to the pinnacle, letting everyone in the world know Long Teng's name. Regardless of jealousy or disdain, Long Teng was destined to soar. Li Xiandao raised his right hand, and a golden order shaped like a sword descended from the heavens, landing in front of Long Teng. From now on you may use this order to command any troops, viewing this order as seeing me personally, and may execute first and report afterwards. Li Zuando's voice echoed like a thunderclap, causing an uproar in the great hall, and even Yang Jian was taken by surprise. Li Yu was stunned, having not expected the emperor to go to such lengths. However, upon considering the relationship between Long Teng and Guan, he found it reasonable. Although the Taizong imperial dynasty was strong, it was far from contending for supremacy over the world, and only with the support of supporting Dao Sword Venerable could there be hope. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Long Teng received the order unflinchingly, his words resounding firmly. As he accepted the order, the courtiers all felt that a great change was about to come to the Taizong imperial dynasty, as not only had the emperor favored Long Teng over the years but had also promoted other members of the Long family. With Long Teng being appointed as Admiral of Celestial Praise, the Long family had truly risen to the top echelon of the Taizong imperial dynasty, compelling even those with a deeper family heritage to take the Long family seriously. Hiss! A fierce wind swept into the great hall, causing everyone's complexion to drastically change. Long Teng turned around, squinting his eyes. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him and pushed forward with a palm. It was Yang Jian. As Yang Jian swung his palm, a tremendous mana erupted, seeming to strike an invisible existence, dispersing into a mist of energy. "Slaughter my demon soldiers and still wish to boast? Ridiculous." A cold sneer sounded, and Yang Jian's complexion abruptly changed as a powerful demonic power dispersed his mana, forcing him to retreat. As he retreated, he did not bump into Long Teng. Instead he fixed his gaze, but Long Teng's figure had already disappeared. Li Xiandao on the dragon throne was also compelled to gather his mana but was still shocked into standing up. Ministers to either side were knocked to the ground, their cries of agony resounding. Emperor Taizong, consider this a warning today, your admiral of celestial praise must die, and I will let my subordinates feast on his flesh. That cold sneer echoed again, the demonic wind in the hall ceased, and Yang Jian also disappeared from the hall, pursuing the source. Li Xiandao stood in front of the dragon throne, his brow furrowed, but he did not panic, his eyes mixed with a hint of unusual color. Long Ting was bound by an unshakable demonic power, losing his ability to resist. He could not even open his eyes, feeling the world spinning and his divine soul inverting. This sensation lasted a long time until he was finally thrown to the ground. As the demonic power dissipated, he opened his eyes and found himself lying in a dim underground plaza, which was vast, and in front, there was an altar over 1,000 zhang in diameter with a majestic stone statue standing behind it, a supremely fierce demon whose mere statue emitted an immense oppressive force. Long Ting turned to look and saw a red cord binding his battle armor, sealing his mana, preventing him from standing up. A figure appeared out of nowhere in front of him, a hawk-headed demon wearing a loose Taoist robe and as tall as a small mountain. With his back to Long Ting, the demon faced the statue and said, "Master, I really can't bear it. I can endure the excesses of the Taizong imperial dynasty, but this guy slaughtered my demon soldiers. I must tear him apart personally." Sia the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. His tone was filled with dissatisfaction. A hoarse voice followed, "What is this person's name? Is he related to that existence?" The hawk-headed demon snorted coldly, "His name is Long Ting. How could he possibly be related to that existence? Master, you are too cautious. Supporting Tao Sword Venerable has long left the celestial spirit great world. If he were really here, it wouldn't be the Tao court but the supreme sect or the Taizong imperial dynasty that would unify the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 592, God of the Great Thousand World. The voice of the eagle-headed demon echoed within the underground plaza, but the aged voice he called Master did not immediately respond. Long Ting heard him mention supporting Tao Sword Venerable, but his expression remained unchanged, and he did not disclose his relationship with the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. The underground plaza fell into silence. The eagle-headed demon turned to look at Long Ting lying on the ground. His right hand lifted, his palm transformed into an eagle's claw, elongated and sharp, with tips even flickering with a cold light. He looked down at Long Ting with a cold smile on his face, unable to hide the murderous intent in his eyes. Long Ting looked up at him, his face still calm, showing no fear. Seeing Long Ting's composure, the eagle-headed demon's anger flared, his face became ferocious as he raised his claw towards Long Ting. "Wait!" The ancient voice suddenly rang out, the fierce demon stone statue exuding tendrils of demon chi, quickly coalescing into a transformed demon. This was an old man, dressed in a black robe made of animal skin, flying in the air like a ghost. His white hair casually draped, covering most of his face, his gaze fixed on Long Ting with furrowed brows. "He is called Long Ting. What is his relationship with Long Qing, the sect leader of the supreme sect?" the old man asked. He was unable to foresee the cause and effect involving Long Ting, which made him uneasy and filled with a strong sense of dread. Sar the novel Fire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He felt a disaster was imminent. The eagle-headed demon turned to look at his master, frowning. Even if he is related to the sect leader of the supreme sect, so what? When the outer heaven power attacked before, the supporting Tao Sword Venerable did not appear, and over these years, descendants of the Long family have been harmed without all their adversaries being destroyed. He knew the identity of the sect leader of the supreme sect, a disciple of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. But the disciples of supporting Tao Sword Venerable were not limited to one, Yang Jian included. When Yang Jian assisted the Taizong imperial dynasty in its conquests, he too had been captured by great powers, surviving countless life and death ordeals, never witnessing supporting Tao Sword Venerable in action. There were still enemies of Yang Jian roaming free, which was why the eagle-headed demon felt his master was too cautious. He even thought that his master was terrified by the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, lacking the spirit of a free immortal. The black-robed demon flickered, appearing before Long Ting, the eagle-headed demon turning as well. "What is your relationship with the supreme sect's Long family?" the black-robed demon sternly asked Long Ting. Long Teng snorted, "Kill or shred, I will heed your decision." He could tell this demon was deeply wary of the supporting Dao sword venerable, and he did not want to disgrace his ancestors. His attitude made the black-robed demon even more nervous, completely a stance full of confidence. The eagle-headed demon frowned, "Master, let me kill him." The black-robed demon turned to look at him, his eyes fierce, deep voice declaring, "If you dared, you would have killed him already. Why bring him before me? Isn't it because you're also uncertain and want your master to take the pressure off you?" The eagle-headed demon's eyes widened, wanting to retort, but facing his master's gaze he held back. Indeed, as his master said, although he was angry, deep down he did not scorn as he claimed verbally. If he truly feared no retribution from the supporting Dao Sword Venerable's legendary influence, he wouldn't have just watched Long Teng slaughter demon soldiers. The more he thought about it afterward, the angrier he got, so he couldn't help but go to the Taizong imperial dynasty when he heard Long Teng was being enthroned, and he blew up in rage, thus capturing Long Teng. He was a divine thought true immortal, before whom Long Teng had no power to resist. Moreover, you've underestimated the Taizong imperial dynasty. Someone has already caught up, the black-robed demon coldly remarked, his tone icy. The eagle-headed demon's face turned gloomy. The black-robed demon looked back at Long Teng, and for some reason seeing Long Teng's calm face made him increasingly anxious. He also started to get angry. "Idiot! How could you cause such a huge disaster?" In today's world, a great era of strife with treasures emerging endlessly, he too needed demons to help him, which is why he supported this disciple. Now he regretted it. The black-robed demon took a deep breath and said, "Send him back. He must not be harmed at all." "What?" The eagle-headed demon's face changed drastically, its eyes filled with disbelief and anger as it looked at its master. The black-robed old demon suddenly erupted with an overwhelming aura, causing the eagle-headed demon to stagger back. "Either send it back or our master-disciple relationship is over. I shall leave now," the black-robed old demon stated irrefutably. Upon hearing this, the eagle-headed demon panicked. Long Teng watched the feud between the master and disciple, finding it noisy. Two useless creatures. Long Teng wasn't panicking after being captured, not because he had something to rely on, but because he wanted to die, to plunge into reincarnation. He no longer paid attention to the two demons, instead closing his eyes and contemplating the celestial dragon reincarnation technique. Guan just glanced at Long Teng's plight without paying much heed. Such occurrences weren't rare in the celestial spirit great world where many of his old acquaintances had encountered similar situations. Once it was understood that they were connected to Guan, their enemies often hesitated and even started infighting. Guan was reading in the courtyard, still absorbed in the Cyan Hero travelogue. The profound celestial intent, now a wandering immortal, traveled more and more, writing a book for every location he visited. Some stories were fabricated, while others were true. Guan greatly admired that the profound celestial intent never forgot his roots. No matter how high his realm, he still wrote stories from the past without any pretense. The profound celestial intent didn't write Cyan Hero travelogue to please Guan. They hadn't seen each other for many years and his writing was more for himself. Guan's copy of Cyan Hero travelogue was purchased from the immortal cultivation realm. He never offered any suggestions to the profound celestial intent. An Xan appeared out of thin air beside him and said, "Master, the Chenkuan sect is planning to fight for an innate spiritual tree. Ichingshan asked me to lend a hand. He said we could plant the tree near our dojo." Guan replied casually, "If you want to get involved, then do it." He wasn't very strict with an Xan. Over the years she had helped the Chenkuan sect numerous times and was already well known. Of course, the reason Guan tacitly approved of Nzin's involvement was that the Chenkuan sect followed a righteous path. Unlike other sects that merely struggled for benefits, the Chenkuan sect prioritized life, and if any creatures were threatened they would intervene, prioritizing the preservation of life in any task. Acting chivalrously was a principle for disciples of the Chenkuan sect. Nowadays, many joined the Chenkuan sect to become cultivating immortal heroes, not merely for longevity. Still go then. I've recently discussed with the Ghost Mother about improving the woodlands outside our dojo to try and cultivate more medicinal herbs. Ideally, I want the outside world to become a holy land of the human world, an Xan said softly with a laugh. She was now in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, holding the Tao treasure, the Six Paths mirror, capable of contending against all beings in the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Guan nodded slightly, his attention still on the book. An Xan glanced at the book cover and thought to herself, "The same book again, how can he never tire of it?" She bowed to Guan, then exchanged a few words with Shenzhen in front of the artifact refining cauldron before she left. As evening approached, Guan put down the Cyan Hero travelogue, stood up and began to stretch his limbs. He looked at Shenzhen and asked, "Fancy going out for a bit?" Shenzhen turned and looked at him, puzzled. "Then who will watch the artifact refining cauldron?" "Actually, it doesn't need constant monitoring. Even without anyone, the Dao treasure can successfully form," Guan answered. Shenzhen's eyes widened, she almost cursed. Biting back her anger, she asked, "So, where do you want to take me?" Guan replied, "To meet the gods of the Great Thousand World." Gods. Shenzhen's anger faded, replaced by curiosity. Source: webn0vel.com, updated on Nav0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 593, The Mischievous Fate Under the Night Sky. By the mountainside where the firelight flickered, Bai Sheng, the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god, sat cross-legged before the fire, cultivating energy to heal his wounds. He didn't notice someone watching him from the mountaintop nearby. Is he the celestial god from the Great Thousand World? Shenzhen looked down at Bai Sheng, asking with a face full of curiosity. To her, Bai Sheng appeared quite ordinary, hardly resembling a celestial god. Although Bai Sheng had undergone nirvana, he remained an insignificant figure in the world and was now facing the greatest ordeal of his life. The most important person to him had been captured by a peerless demon and was to become the demon consort. The news had spread across the demon lands, and demon kings from all quarters were preparing to offer their congratulations. If he wished to rescue his beloved, he would be up against the entire demon race of the demon lands. His pressure was immense, and without any other option, he had to cultivate alone in the desolate mountains and wilderness. Guan, feeling Bai Sheng's inner turmoil, replied, "He is a reincarnated celestial god. Don't be fooled by his weakness, his soul is the strongest existence in the world." Shenzhen wanted to ask how he compared to you, but she felt the question was unnecessary. "He seems very troubled," Shenzhen said softly, staring at Bai Sheng. Guan glanced at her and inwardly nodded in approval. Her cultivation level might not be strong, but her perception power was growing as she gained enlightenment. In terms of perceiving the great Tao, Shenzhen was certainly the strongest among the dojo's disciples, following a highly unconventional path in her cultivation. Guan briefly narrated the story of Bai Sheng and Su Jin and the predicament he was currently facing. Su Jin had been captured by a demon of the divine thought true immortal realm, the most powerful being in the land. Had it not been for Su Jin's pleas, Bai Sheng would have already been killed by that demon. During the years of cultivating together, this man and demon had already become soulmates, and Su Jin had saved Bai Sheng countless times. He couldn't imagine how he would live without Su Jin in the future. Especially thinking about the suffering Su Jin might endure, his heart was in agony. After hearing this, Shenzhen showed an interested expression. She was no ordinary woman and wasn't moved to tears by the tale of Bai Sheng and Su Jin. She was pondering another question. Why could Su Jin bridge the gap of reincarnation and find the reincarnated celestial god? She had a vague suspicion that Guan was manipulating everything from behind the scenes. "Let's go down and meet him." Guan dropped this remark and started walking down the mountain, with Shenzhen following closely. Walking behind Guan, she asked, "Are you going to help him?" The idea of such a powerful celestial god enduring the suffering of reincarnation made Shenzhen think of the world-shattering battle before the remaking of heaven and earth. Knowing Guan as she did, it was clear he wasn't trying to mock the celestial god. Rather, he wanted the celestial god to understand the suffering of mortal spirits and thus become a celestial immortal that all sentient beings aspired to. Since ancient times, countless legends about immortal gods had existed, yet rarely did genuine immortal gods descend to save the world. For cultivators, immortal gods represented more of an aspirational goal. Cultivators long for the immortal gods, not for the responsibilities they carry, but for the capability of immortality. Walking ahead, Guan said with a soft chuckle, "Helping him is also helping those demons." After all, Bai Sheng was no ordinary man. Once he awakened the will of the celestial spirit god, it would take only a thought to turn those demons to dust. Of course, if Guan aided those demons in suppressing the celestial spirit god, they wouldn't meet such an end, but why would Guan want to help them? To forcefully wed another's beloved was inherently immoral. Shenzhen quickened her pace to walk alongside him, and together they approached Bai Sheng. With the help of Guan's mana, Bai Sheng didn't sense Shenzhen's presence, nor hear their footsteps. It wasn't until the two of them were right in front of Bai Sheng that Guan coughed falsely, startling Bai Sheng into opening his eyes suddenly. Seeing the sudden appearance of two people in front of him, Bai Sheng was frightened and immediately jumped up, quickly creating distance and watching Guan and Shenzhen warily. He subconsciously thought that the two were demons in disguise, capable of approaching him without his notice, which surely meant their cultivation level was higher than his. Could they be subordinates sent by the demon emperor? Bai Sheng drew his sword ready to fight. Guan looked at him and laughed, asking, "Don't you remember me?" Hearing this, Bai Sheng hesitantly asked, "You are?" He had only known Guan for less than a year, and now after so many springs and autumns had passed, he had long forgotten Guan, only occasionally recalling when he first witnessed the power of immortal cultivation. He would think of an old friend who died in that city. Sir, the novel, Ft. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan, brother Bai, have you forgotten? I accompanied you to the imperial examination and even taught you swordsmanship, Guan said with a wry smile. After hearing this, Bai Sheng concentrated and quickly widened his eyes. He didn't immediately trust Guan, instead pinching himself, thinking he might be under the influence of a demon's illusion technique. Shenzhen covered her mouth to conceal her laughter at his actions. Guan patiently explained, "We are not transformed demons. If we were as you suspect, we wouldn't bother deceiving you, we would just kill you." Bai Sheng thought it made sense, but he was completely unprepared for the fact that someone from his memory, long thought dead, was still alive and standing in front of him. He overlooked one detail, that Guan somehow knew what he was thinking. "Brother Gu, where did you go back then?" Bai Sheng asked awkwardly, the passage of time having erased his recollection of the feeling of their companionship. Guan sat in front of the fire and gestured for Bai Sheng to come back. Shenzhen sat next to Guan with poise, appearing like an immortal goddess from heaven, her knees pointing towards Guan, clearly positioning him as the principal figure. Bai Sheng took a deep breath, returned to the fire. He was at his wit's end, and if he could not save Su Jin, life would be meaningless. His eyes became resolute and he resumed his seat from before. "Talking about me is pointless. Do you want to save Su Jin?" asked Guan, picking up a stick and poking at the fire as he spoke. Bai Sheng's eyes lit up, asking, "Do you have a way?" "As long as you can help me save her, I'm willing to pay any price." Guan looked at him, his gaze sharpening. "What if it meant your death?" "I'm willing," Bai Sheng answered without hesitation. Guan continued, "If you die, she might marry someone else. How would that be any different from now? That demon doesn't want to kill her." Bai Sheng's complexion changed slightly, but he still said through gritted teeth, "It's different. I want her to be able to pursue the happiness she desires, not be coerced. As long as you can save her, I'm ready to die at any time." This scene reminded Guan of when the boss had saved number 5 all those years ago. Back then as now, Su Jin had given hope to the boss, but at the cost of his life. Destiny really had a way of playing tricks on people. Guan looked down at the fire, as if contemplating whether or not to save Su Jin. Bai Sheng pressed, "That demon emperor is a divine thought, true immortal from the 8th heaven of immortal Tao. Do you know of a being stronger than him?" He noticed his question made the woman beside Guan laugh again, the corners of her mouth lifting uncontrollably as though she were mocking him. Guan leisurely said, "Don't rush. Let me tell you a story." Bai Sheng's heart was burning with urgency, hardly in the mood for stories, but before he could refuse, Guan began to speak. "In outer heaven, far in the depths of the universe, there is a gate known as the World Gate, below which resides a deity called the Celestial Spirit God. Outer heaven. God." Bai Sheng was suddenly captivated and listened intently to Guan's continuing tale. Shenzhen was also listening intently, even beginning to imagine such a scene. A towering gate standing in the cosmos, beneath it, a deity. Images began forming in her mind, she even saw other scenes. Source, webn0vel.com, updated on Nav0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 594. The Price of Becoming a God. The night was like water, the fires on the hillside illuminating a 30-foot radius. Bai Sheng listened to Guan telling the story of the celestial spirit God, his heart longing, his face full of disbelief. There were such beings beyond the heavens. The resolute, almost invincible celestial spirit God filled Bai Sheng with admiration. "Even the strongest gods have desires," said Guan with a sigh. For the sake of the ultimate treasure, he decided to destroy the great thousand world, and for that he paid a painful price, cast into reincarnation by a greater power, to undergo the suffering of mortal spirits. Listening to this, Bai Sheng's thoughts churned dramatically. He couldn't help but ask, "So, you know who the celestial spirit god reincarnated into? Can you have him help me?" In his eyes, the 9 heavens of the immortal path was the pinnacle of immortal cultivation. The great demon who had reached the 8th heaven was already unparalleled, so surely the celestial spirit god must be of the 9th heaven cultivation level. Why would Guan bring up the celestial spirit god for no reason? He must have a way to find the celestial spirit god. Faced with Bai Sheng's eager gaze, Guan replied, "I do indeed know where he is, and if he takes action he will surely be able to deal with that demon emperor, but what? But celestial gods are only bound by the heavenly Tao, no one knows what he thinks, reviving him might bring catastrophe to the entire world." Hearing this, Bai Sheng fell silent. He felt that Su Jin was most important, but to gamble the freedom of all living beings on Su Jin's freedom was far too selfish. Search * the novel, F.I.R. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. He admitted he was no great philanthropist. He could be selfish, but he could not hurt innocent people. Shenzhen watched Bai Sheng caught in his dilemma, finding it amusing, wondering whether Bai Sheng's feelings for Su Jin would change after he had restored the will of the celestial spirit god. Bai Sheng gritted his teeth and asked, "Is there no other way? The lives of all living beings, including me, including Su Jin, and including all of you, if saving them requires such a cost, it's meaningless." Guan said with profound meaning, "Of course there is, and that is for you to convince the celestial spirit god to change his views, to become the god that all living beings want." "How could I possibly do that?" Bai Sheng asked with a frown. Upon entering the immortal cultivation realm, he felt his own mediocrity. There were far too many people in this world with far greater talent than him. He had only come this far by the help of Su Jin. Could someone like him persuade a celestial god? He didn't see himself as the protagonist of a story. He looked at Guan, anxiously awaiting an answer, but Guan didn't respond, just staring at him with a smile that wasn't quite a smile, which confused him even more. Suddenly Bai Sheng had a thought, his face turned pale and his eyes widened. His body began to tremble. Could I be the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god? Bai Sheng struggled with the turmoil in his heart and asked cautiously. Guan met his gaze and said, "If you become him, Su Jin will not be as important in your heart, but your will could make him help you save Su Jin." At those words, Bai Sheng's face darkened. "Don't worry, you still have time to choose. The long night stretches before us, why not think about this life?" As Guan spoke, he raised his hand and a plump chicken, plucked clean of feathers, appeared in his hand and he began to roast the chicken. Shenzhen added from the side, "Sprinkle on more cumin." This was the first complete sentence she had said in front of Bai Sheng. Bai Sheng looked at the plump chicken in Guan's hands, his thoughts drifting off to a time long ago. Deep within a tranquil palace, Su Jin sat in front of a large bronze mirror, looking at her own beautiful reflection with hollow eyes. She began to feel weary. In pursuit of Bai Sheng, it took her 10,000 years. Helping Bai Sheng with his immortal cultivation, it took her another 10,000 years. Alas, there were always endless troubles in the world standing in their way. She even wondered, would Bai Sheng have lived a better life without her? She had come to understand that in life, suffering is inevitable. No one is forever happy and content. Instead of being perpetually dissatisfied, it's better to think about the times once had. Su Jin began to reminisce about the moments she and Bai Sheng carefreely spent in the human world, her face revealing a sweet smile. Just then, a graceful figure emerged from the darkness behind her, a female demon in a purple dress, with a slender figure and delicate features. Tiny purple scales adorned her cheeks. She approached Su Jin from behind and bowed gently. "My lady, it's said that the demon emperor has invited the demon emperor from the human world as a guest. This grand marriage is no small matter. It will be a moment for the demon emperor to demonstrate his influence to the entire demon race, and your fame will spread throughout the world." The purple-dressed female demon spoke softly, her voice filled with admiration and longing. Su Jin replied calmly, "It seems the emperor has even bigger ambitions. Yes, there are countless demon emperors and demon kings in this world. The human race has the Tao court to unite all, but the demon race doesn't have an absolute ruler yet. The emperor wants to become such an existence," continued the purple-dressed female. Su Jin remained silent, listening to her talk about the affairs of the demon race. She felt a pang of emotion inside. Indeed, the world was so vast. To have managed so many years of joy with Bai Sheng was already extraordinary. How many loving couples could stay together for so long? She knew Bai Sheng would come to rescue her again, but he wouldn't be able to take her away. The only way to save him was to let go of their love. Su Jin's gaze gradually became cold. She was burying her love deep within her heart. By the way, my lady, a celestial has recently appeared in the city. He claims to be a servant of the heavenly Tao, serving the true celestial gods. He says an celestial god will be born within our demon city. The emperor values him highly, allowing him to wander the city freely. It's hard to tell if it's true or false, pondered the purple-dressed demon, chin in hand. Su Jin became interested and asked, a celestial? What's his name? He calls himself the Taoless Celestial. Taoless Celestial? Sounds quite rebellious. My lady, be careful not to speak carelessly in case he hears you. It was a sunny day, no wind, no rain. Guan, Shenzhen, and Bai Sheng stepped through the gates of the demon city, awestruck by the magnificent streets ahead of them. Shenzhen was utterly captivated. I never imagined the land of the demon race could be so thriving, and there are also many cultivators coming and going, mused Shenzhen. The demons here were great demons capable of transformation. At first glance, the city seemed like one of the human race, but a closer look revealed many still had characteristics of their original demon forms. The city was vast and limitless, with mountains and uneven terrain within, the streets noisy with clamor, and the skies crowded with various mounts and magical treasures flying past, dazzling onlookers. Bai Sheng had also come to this demon city for the first time. Just witnessing its prosperity made him feel immense pressure. Not to mention cultivation level, the fact that the demon emperor could create such a city was beyond comparison with him. At least the opponent could bring prosperity to a region, but what about him? Apart from the cheap love he felt for Su Jin, what meaning did his existence hold in this world? Guan looked at Bai Sheng and smiled. Whenever you're ready, you can start. Bai Sheng took a deep breath and said, I want to look around a bit more before making a decision. Let's do it together. There's also someone in the city I'd like to meet, Guan said with a soft laugh, a playful glint in his eyes. He never expected that guy was still alive. Source, Webn 0 vel. Com, updated on Nav 0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 595 I really thought you were him. HTML Guan discovered traces of Wu Daoxian in this demon city. Wu Daoxian was the master of the Black Profound Emperor, and he incited the Black Profound Emperor to slay his reincarnation body. He, like the Black Profound Emperor, had died at the hands of the celestial spirit god, yet he had not truly fallen. Wu Daoxian tutored the Black Profound Emperor in the Taoist unique venerate skill. This cultivation technique was extremely exquisite, and Guan had imparted it to Jiang Shi and in Xingtian. With this skill they were able to strive towards the golden immortal Tao fruit. It was worth mentioning that Zhu Shi also learned the Taoist unique venerate skill from the immortal seeker, suggesting that there was some connection between the immortal seeker and Wu Daoxian. Of course, there was also the possibility that this cultivation technique was related to the celestial court. Currently, Zhu Shi was roaming other great thousand worlds, the immortal seeker was nowhere to be seen, and yet Wu Daoxian surfaced first. He could feel that this Wu Daoxian was not the true self. His true self was hidden within a secret space on the path of the great Tao. The specifics of the location could only be explored after contacting his avatar. Wu Daoxian proclaimed that an immortal god would be born here, which piqued Guan's interest in him even further. Could it be that he anticipated the revival of the celestial spirit god here? If that were the case, it would certainly be intriguing. Guan was not afraid of Wu Daoxian causing trouble. Wu Daoxian was not tolerated by the celestial court and had to hide everywhere, so it was unlikely he would collude with the celestial court. As for what sort of backing Wu Daoxian had, Guan was also quite interested. Bai Sheng did not mind Guan's proposal. He walked ahead first, indifferent to the person Guan wanted to meet, as his mind was solely on Su Jin. Shenzhen and Guan followed behind him. Shenzhen used the sound transmission technique to ask, he's so absent-minded, could he be willing to give up Su Jin? We'll know the answer today. Guan replied using the sound transmission technique. He looked at Bai Sheng's back and felt deeply moved. It wasn't Bai Sheng and Su Jin's relationship that moved him, but his brotherhood with Bai Sheng. He somewhat missed the days of exploring mountains and waters and drinking joyously with Bai Sheng. Bai Sheng did not know he was the supporting Tao sword venerable, treated him with less reverence and had no ulterior motives. They had a sense of kindred spirits. Sadly, times change and Bai Sheng had lost his carefree nature and had long forgotten him. Over 30,000 years had passed, Now the only one he could chat freely with was Shenzhen. Perhaps the loss of such companionship was the price of power. Asterisk as Guan was sighing over the changes brought by time, the demon city grew increasingly lively. A strong wind swept through, startling the demons and cultivators on the streets as they looked up, only to see a large fish with black wings flying over the city walls and heading towards the distance. Its wingspan spanned thousands of feet, blocking out the sky and plunging the street where Guan and his companions stood into darkness. Bai Sheng, having seen much, was not surprised. But if he knew that there was a pavilion on the fish's back, with someone inside not weaker than the Demon Emperor, he would surely be shocked. The Demon Emperor of this city was named the Great Liang Demon Emperor. Although he was a divine thought, true immortal in cultivation, he possessed clues to a heaven and earth ultimate treasure, which was why all the great powers came to celebrate. Heaven and earth ultimate treasure was the immortal cultivation realm's term for the most powerful magical treasures. These treasures were rich with destiny, even capable of creating a world harboring the power of heaven and earth. These heaven and earth ultimate treasures also originated from the battle court. Those who crafted them were all golden immortals, thus they contained world power. Guan did not harbor ill feelings towards the great Liang Demon Emperor. Although this guy kidnapped Su Jin, he treated her politely and promised to only win her heart before taking her. The reason for holding the grand wedding in advance was because that heaven and earth ultimate treasure was about to be born. It was worth noting that people from the Dao court also came to congratulate the great Liang Demon Emperor. Different realms had different circles. The great Liang Demon Emperor could at most invite those in the Zizai immortal realm. Such beings were rare great powers in the world and were considered ancient myths to mortal spirits. Bai Sheng, though wandering aimlessly, was being subtly guided towards Wu Daoxian under the influence of Guan's Dao intent. As time went by, more and more powerful beings arrived, with steeds even grander than the previous black-winged fish, bringing glory to the city's demons. They did not know just how strong those powers were. They only felt the commanding presence of the great Liang Demon Emperor. An hour quickly passed. Unknowingly, Bai Sheng arrived in front of a giant stele, located at a crossroads on the street, towering 100 feet high and surrounded by hundreds of beings. Wu Daoxian was also here. In this lifetime, Wu Daoxian wore a blue Taoist robe, his hair completely white, and held a horsetail whisk in his hand, exuding an immortal-like aura. He held the whisk in one hand and stroked his beard with the other, seemingly deep in thought. Guan walked directly towards him, brushing past Bai Sheng. Following close behind, Shenzhen's steps made Bai Sheng subconsciously follow suit. This stele seems to contain some profound meaning. Guan approached Wu Daoxian and spoke softly. Wu Daoxian glanced at him, initially dismissive, but upon seeing him, Wu Daoxian's expression suddenly changed. Sar the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Wu Daoxian scrutinized Guan, asking, "What? Did you see something?" To him, Guan appeared to be merely a celestial and earthly immortal, but Guan's features seemed familiar. Why did he resemble that rebellious disciple of mine from before? Guan looked at Shenzhen and asked with a smile, "Did you see anything?" Upon hearing the question, Shenzhen began to seriously examine the 100-foot-tall stele in front. Wu Daoxian kept his gaze on Guan, his eyes sharp, seemingly wanting to see through him. Bai Sheng stood at the back inspecting Wu Daoxian. He had seen many Taoists like Wu Daoxian before, but he could feel that Wu Daoxian had a certain hostility towards Guan. "I see a giant red tortoise. The stele is a piece of its shell." Shenzhen suddenly spoke, causing Wu Daoxian to shift his gaze to her, eyes filled with surprise. This woman can actually see through it? Shenzhen continued to observe intently. She frowned and said, "The red tortoise is still alive, seeking to find this fragment of its shell." Wu Daoxian became interested in her and asked with a smile, "This young lady is remarkable, seeing the cause and effect from outer heaven. May I ask whose tutelage you are under?" Shenzhen snapped back to reality and did not answer Wu Daoxian. Instead, she looked towards Guan, giving an answer with her eyes. Wu Daoxian turned his attention back to Guan and sighed, "Young brother, you bear a strong resemblance to a certain disciple of mine. Were it not for seeing with my own eyes his soul scattered, I might have thought you were him." His eyes showed a trace of nostalgia as if reminiscing about that disciple. Bai Sheng, hearing this, breathed a silent sigh of relief. It didn't sound like a vendetta. Although unsure of how strong Guan was, he sensed that Wu Daoxian's Dao practice was unfathomable. Such a man was not to be provoked. Guan nodded and said, "You also resemble a master of mine. Were it not for seeing with my own eyes his beheading, I might have thought you were him." With these words, Wu Daoxian's pupils shrank suddenly. Almost instantly he lifted his right hand. Xin Zhen and Bai Sheng were unable to react in time. However, Gu An's movement was quicker. Slap. Gu An's right hand landed on Wu Daoxian's shoulder, and with this pat, his mana dissipated instantly, his eyes widening. Source: Webn 0 vel. Com, updated on Nav 0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 596 Innate Immortal Gods. Guan stared at Wu Dao Immortal, his eyes full of shock and anger. Because it wasn't his real body, he didn't despair. He stared intently at Guan and said in a deep voice, "I didn't expect you to still be alive." Guan pressed on him, saying, "I didn't expect you to be alive either." Xin Zhen and Bai Sheng sensed something was wrong and became vigilant. Wu Dao Immortal asked coldly, "Did you come specifically to find me or for him?" Guan smiled and said, "He has already arrived right before your eyes." Hearing this, Wu Dao Immortal was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked towards Xin Zhen. Could it be that Xin Zhen, with such low cultivation level, was a reincarnation of the celestial spirit god? Although Xin Zhen was female, Wu Dao Immortal, who had seen and known much, found the notion of a man reincarnating as a woman not strange at all. Guan shook his head and turned to glance at Bai Sheng, saying, "The god who slew me back then is him." Wu Dao Immortal couldn't help but look towards Bai Sheng, his eyebrows tightly furrowed. In his eyes, Bai Sheng seemed so mediocre. Bai Sheng was also stunned. He subconsciously looked at Guan. Had Guan died at his hands in a previous life? Wasn't that a deep grudge and great hatred? In such circumstances, why would Guan want to help him? Xin Zhen had not expected Guan to have such a past either, and inwardly sighed that indeed, behind invincibility was a difficult path. Wu Dao Immortal fell into silence, more concerned with what Guan wanted to do than the reincarnation of the celestial spirit god. This body was still too weak, unable to resist this young man's suppression. Wu Dao Immortal was annoyed, thinking of many years of grievances, his anger uncontrollably rising. Once he had placed great expectations on the Black Profound Emperor, but unfortunately the Black Profound Emperor resisted him and even caused him to be executed by the celestial spirit god, and his real Bodis injuries hadn't fully recovered to this day. Guan saw through what he was thinking and said, "Let's watch a good show together next." As his words fell, Guan withdrew his hand, but Wu Dao Immortal felt his chi power being sealed within his body. He was now like a mortal, utterly powerless. Wu Dao Immortal knew he couldn't escape, so he didn't act rashly. He turned his gaze to Bai Sheng and said, "The immortal god I'm looking for is not him." Guan asked, "Are there other immortal gods in this realm?" He hadn't detected the traces of other immortal gods, but he didn't doubt Wu Dao Immortal's words. Instead, it piqued his curiosity. Even though there were no traces of immortal gods, the legacies of immortal gods were there. LV Xian held an immortal god's legacy, and before the reshaping of heaven and earth, followers of immortal gods wandered the human world, promoting the name of the heavenly Tao. These signs proved that an immortal god could appear at any time. Yes, this god is not an ascended god but an innate immortal god, born from the celestial Tao destiny, Wu Dao Immortal replied, not minding sharing this information with Guan despite being sealed by him. Though they had deadly enmities, both stood against the celestial court. Guan thought of Fairy Yao Xian and suddenly guessed something, directing his gaze toward Su Jin. Indeed. Su Jin was pregnant, deliberately hiding and sealing the fetus, stopping its development, undetected even by the great Liang Demon Emperor. CTHNL Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Sheng had reincarnated many times and fathered children but had never begotten an innate immortal god. Why could he this time? Guan carefully observed. The child in Su Jin's womb had no trace of celestial Tao destiny. Could it transform later? Guan pondered as his gaze shifted towards the 100-zhang stele ahead. He began to chat idly with Wu Daoxian, discussing the heavens and earth and the origins of the stele. Bai Sheng noticed that those around them showed no reaction, as if they hadn't heard the conversation about the immortal gods. He realized he had embroiled himself in great trouble, yet he was prepared to face death if only it could save Su Jin. Past lives, destinies, he didn't believe in any of it. He was him. He was not a god, and should he become one, the godhead turn into would surely not be ruled by his current will. Whatever being you are, your resurrection was caused by my sacrifice, and you must help me save her, just save her, without harming anyone else. Bai Sheng silently recited this to himself as though he were conversing with his own soul. Time continued to advance, and the hour of the great wedding grew ever nearer. In the heart of Demon City, a sumptuous feast had already begun. The great Liang Demon Emperor was making small talk with various guests. Female demons danced and sang, and various spirit fruits and spiritual wine were presented, making everything appear luxuriously lively. Although Bai Sheng couldn't see the details of the grand wedding, listening to conversations of passers-by made him increasingly anxious. Within Demon City, his divine sense met obstacles everywhere, forcing him into wild speculations. He frequently glanced at Guan, who was steadily chatting with Wu Daoxian, oblivious to the matter of him becoming the celestial spirit god. This only heightened his unease and anxiety. Today is the great wedding day of the great Liang Demon Emperor and his beloved Su Jin. I thank all who have come to support this event. To make your journey worthwhile, I will present a heaven and earth ultimate treasure for all to experience the true meaning of the great Tao. Whether high or low in cultivation level, all may find a connection with the Tao. The voice of the great Liang Demon Emperor suddenly boomed through the city, interrupting the conversation between Guan and Wu Daoxian. Bai Sheng immediately became desperate, unable to resist speaking out. "Brother Gu, aren't we starting yet?" Guan turned to look at him, asking, "Have you thought it through?" Bai Sheng took a deep breath and said, "I've thought it through, let me become him. Become the celestial spirit god." Hearing the voice of the great Liang Demon Emperor had driven him to lose all reason, with his only thought being to save Su Jin. Wu Daoxian also glanced at Bai Sheng, a sneer appearing in his eyes. Could the all-powerful invincible celestial spirit god really be trapped by love? His gaze shifted back to Guan, thinking this youngster was definitely up to no good, playing such tricks on a celestial god. Hearing Bai Sheng's words, a change came over Guan's eyes, and Bai Sheng, meeting his gaze, felt the world spinning around him. At the same time, in central Demon City, on 1,000 steps, Su Jin stood next to the great Liang Demon Emperor under a red bridal veil, conducting herself with grace. The great Liang Demon Emperor, clad in a dragon-embroidered black robe and towering in stature with 2 horns amid his blood-red hair, merely standing there emitted an unrivaled aura. The great Liang Demon Emperor surveyed the expansive square below, where high platforms surrounded the perimeter, each occupied by beings whose cultivation level was no less than his. He was quite pleased with his pulling power. After today's grand event, his fame would spread across the whole world. He first aimed to make all demons across the world recognize his name, which would then pave the way for unifying the entire demon race. The news of the heaven and earth ultimate treasure stirred an uproar among the high platforms. Many demons and cultivators hadn't expected the great Liang Demon Emperor to unveil such a treasure directly. The great Liang Demon Emperor relished their discussions. Just as he was about to speak, a terrifying aura suddenly exploded from afar, surging to the skies. Boom! The entire demon city shook violently, causing the expressions of great demons and great cultivators to change as they all turned in the same direction. The smile on the great Liang Demon Emperor's face froze, his brows furrowing, a chill appearing in his eyes. Someone dared to challenge his authority? Truly seeking death. Source: Webn0vel. Com, updated on Nav 0. Co. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 597. Go meet God at the 100-yard steel. Hundreds of cultivators and demons looked towards Bai Sheng in shock. Bai Sheng's body burst forth with dazzling white light, his chi force like flames, his robes fluttering intensely, the light masking his features, making him appear quite divine and full of oppressiveness. Shenzhen's cheeks fluttered with her hair, her eyes widened, looking at Bai Sheng in surprise. Although she had known before coming that Bai Sheng would transform into a celestial spirit god, actually witnessing this scene still surprised her. She could feel Bai Sheng's soul transforming, a power that made her Tao heart tremble surged forth, unstoppable. Such a powerful presence was truly worthy of a celestial god. Shenzhen couldn't help but glance at Guan. She secretly wondered, just how powerful was Guan, who could have thrust such a formidable figure into reincarnation. Fellow Taoist Wu Dao was also surprised. He could tell that the celestial spirit god hadn't entered reincarnation willingly. Thinking back to 20,000 years ago when the Great Thousand World underwent reconstruction, the celestial spirit god disappeared. Could it have been the Black Profound Emperor's doing? He looked towards Guan, filled with confusion. How exactly did this boy manage it? Bai Sheng, who was recovering his cultivation level, slowly floated upwards, attracting more and more beings to gaze at him, Figures appeared atop the buildings in all directions. Those were demon soldiers of the great Liang Demon Emperor, none with small cultivation levels, but upon seeing Bai Sheng, each showed a face full of fear. As Bai Sheng's aura grew stronger, powerful figures continuously appeared in the sky. On the steps above, Su Jin couldn't help but lift her veil, her makeup exquisite, as beautiful as an immortal in a painting, her eyebrows furrowed. For some reason this momentum felt vaguely familiar to her. She tried to remember but couldn't recall where and when she had felt such an aura before. "My beloved, don't panic, I will return momentarily," said the great Liang Demon Emperor in a low voice, though his face didn't appear as calm as he felt inside, because that mysterious aura was rising too quickly, so much so that he couldn't remain seated. Just after speaking he vanished from the spot. Su Jin still looked towards the sky where the aura soared, her pupils suddenly widening. She seemed to think of something. Boom! A gust of fierce wind came howling, making Su Jin's dress flutter violently. Time seemed to freeze. She instinctively glanced over, and saw a figure glowing with intense light standing next to her. In this figure's hand held a demon. The great Liang Demon Emperor. The great Liang Demon Emperor was held by the throat by the glowing figure's right hand, lifted into the air, unable to break free, his face showing pain and anger. Su Jin's heart churned wildly, too late to think. The great Liang Demon Emperor had just flown out and was captured. Even after living more than 20,000 years, she was stunned at that moment. Outrageous! A roaring shout shook heaven and earth. A great power cultivator from the Zizai immortal realm appeared next to the great Liang Demon Emperor, wanting to rescue him. Accompanied by a deafening explosion, this great power cultivator was knocked back away, smashing through a palace and further buildings, disappearing into the distance. The glow on Su Jin's face faded. She gradually saw the true face of the person next to her, and she couldn't help but widen her eyes. This person was Bai Sheng. Bai Sheng looked no different from before, only his hair was disheveled and fluttering in the wind. His expression was so indifferent, his gaze towards the great Liang Demon Emperor, as if looking at a dead man. How is this possible?" The great Liang Demon Emperor spoke with a trembling voice, his tone filled with shock. He naturally recognized Bai Sheng. When Su Jin had pleaded for Bai Sheng before, Bai Sheng seemed no different than an insect in his eyes. Had it only been so long? Search * the novel under @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Bai Sheng had actually rendered him unable to resist. He even felt that if Bai Sheng exerted force he would shatter. He had never felt such a terrifying sensation before. His heart was extremely fearful. "Bai." Su Jin gazed at the indifferent Bai Sheng, murmuring to herself. At this moment Bai Sheng was no longer Bai Sheng, but the celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god glanced at her, furrowing his brow, the coldness in his eyes making Su Jin's heart ache deeply. More and more mighty figures appeared around. They were not aligned with the great Liang Demon Emperor, but were there for the heaven and earth ultimate treasure. "Who might you be? The heaven and earth ultimate treasure has not yet appeared, so why are you fellow Taoists in such a rush to act? Who is this person? I have never seen him before. Such aura has already surpassed the 9 heavens of the immortal path, and it is still rising. I feel like he is not here for the heaven and earth ultimate treasure. It's like he has just awakened from reincarnation tribulation." As each powerful being took out their magical treasures, the entire demon city trembled non-stop, with stones even flying around, and dark clouds gradually gathering in the sky, darkening the demon city. The celestial spirit god ignored the discussions around him, slightly tilting his head and looking towards the distance with the corner of his eye. He had already spotted Guan and Wu Dao immortal. He knew he couldn't escape, still being under control. He didn't feel the urge to seek revenge on Guan. He was savoring the experiences of this lifetime. In fact, he was still Bai Sheng, feeling as though he had personally lived this life, just that his mindset had reverted to that of the celestial spirit god, a subtle feeling yet not discordant at all. Su Jin mustered up her courage and asked again, "What exactly?" "I have already awakened the primordial will. What you faced before was me in the midst of reincarnation. He sacrificed himself hoping I would act to save you." The celestial spirit god cut off her words, saying indifferently with no emotional fluctuation in his voice. After listening, Su Jin's beautiful eyes widened, her mind thrown into disarray. The great Liang Demon Emperor felt even more terrified after hearing this, as he was well aware of the concept of reincarnation, sinking his heart into despair. With his enmity with Bai Sheng, he feared that the other party wouldn't let him go. The great Liang Demon Emperor closed his eyes, bracing himself for death. Just then he suddenly felt the grip on his neck release. He instinctively opened his eyes, meeting the indifferent gaze of the celestial spirit god, causing him to tremble. He didn't dare turn and run, for he had already felt the vast difference in cultivation level between them. For eternity, you shall not come across her again, otherwise, you will never transcend this cycle. No existence in this world can help you. The voice of the celestial spirit god reached the ears of the great Liang demon emperor, turning his face pale. As the celestial spirit god turned to look at Su Jin, the great Liang demon emperor was so frightened that he immediately fled. As he fled, the celestial gods watching from the sky also began to waver and eventually chased after him. They hadn't forgotten the purpose of their trip. It was the heaven and earth ultimate treasure that they sought. As the sky filled with great power cultivators and demons departing, a strong wind stirred, blowing through the garments of Su Jin and the celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god slowly lifted his chin, looking down on Su Jin and said, "Stop looking at me with those eyes. You are merely a trial I encountered in my reincarnations. You shouldn't chase after me. Perhaps you aren't even aware that you're being manipulated like a pawn, and any connection between us is false." Su Jin's eyes filled with tears. She gritted her teeth and asked, "Even the feelings we had when we were in love, were those false too?" The celestial spirit god frowned. "In face of the great Tao, all emotions are false. Now scram." He turned away, looking in the direction where Guan was. Su Jin wanted to say more, but the celestial spirit god slapped her abdomen with the back of his hand, sending her flying towards the horizon, quickly disappearing from sight. The entire demon city had descended into chaos. Countless demons took to the skies to see what exactly had happened. Many also fled in panic. Guan, Shenzhen, and Wu Dao immortals saw the figures around them swiftly dispersing. "Let's go, it's time to see the god," Guan said softly with a smile, then stepped towards the sky, Shenzhen and Wu Dao immortal following behind. Wu Dao immortal found himself unable to move, only capable of following Guan flying towards the celestial spirit god. From a distance, as his gaze landed on the celestial spirit god, his face turned unnatural, his head involuntarily twitching. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 598 Celestial Court and Mortal Spirit Guan brought Shenzhen and the immortal who defied Tao, and soon they arrived at the wedding banquet plaza of the great Liang demon emperor. At that moment, the square was a mess, with colorful cloths still fluttering in the air. The celestial spirit god stood atop the steps, looking down indifferently at the three persons below. Shenzhen looked at him with a secretly shocked heart. Is this a celestial god? Although there were no changes in facial features or figure, the aura exuded was utterly different. Even with her current cultivation level facing the celestial spirit god, Shenzhen couldn't help but feel a sense of reverence. This was the sentiment a mortal spirit felt when facing immortal gods. It was hard to imagine such beings would fall into the realm of reincarnation. Facing the gaze of the celestial spirit god, the immortal who defied Tao trembled even more violently, not daring to meet the gaze of the celestial spirit god. "So it is? I have seen you before? I felt then that those guys were not their true selves." The voice of the celestial spirit god descended from above, lofty and filled with authority. Guan looked at him and asked, "Have these experiences of reincarnation made you feel anything?" The celestial spirit god's expression remained unchanged as he said, "I know what you want to do, hoping I understand the experience of mortal spirits, to feel pity for them. Do you think I have never had such experiences?" Although Guan had searched the memory of the celestial spirit god, everything about the celestial court was blank, so his understanding of the celestial spirit god was not complete. Before becoming a celestial god, we must all go through the ordeal of reincarnation. The celestial court doesn't make us pity mortal spirits. Instead, it makes us clearly understand the difference between immortals and mortals. You help those mortal spirits and they will indeed appreciate you. But the moment you stop helping, even if you do nothing at all, mortal spirits will hate you, believing their misfortunes are all you're doing. The tone of the celestial spirit god grew colder, even revealing his disdain for mortal spirits. Immortal gods created the heavens and the earth to achieve enlightenment, yet the world nurtured all living beings. The immortal gods did not abandon all living beings. Instead, they created the heavenly Tao so that all living beings could live better lives. Immortal gods even imparted the method of cultivating immortality to all living beings in the all heavens and myriad realms. Yet what they received in return was rebellion after rebellion. Ea the Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The words of the celestial spirit god shook Shenzhen. She didn't question it because all cultivators had such ambitions. It's just that she had never considered these issues from the perspective of immortal gods. The celestial spirit god gazed at Guan and said, "Do you think what you're doing is for justice or to cover up your compassion for your own kind? If you became an immortal god, would you still act the same?" Guan responded, "There are indeed many things in this world that are hard to judge as right or wrong. But if you say the immortal gods created everything, that may not be so. Did you create the great Tao? Was it your choice for the world to foster all living beings? You are just walking ahead, blocking those behind you from reaching the heights you've attained, then claim it's because we don't try hard enough, that we are ungrateful. You can say that, but if that's really what you think, then it's truly pitiable." Shenzhen looked at Guan, her eyes filled with admiration. This was what she admired about Guan. He was never confused. The immortal who defied Tao also looked at Guan, hearing his disdain for the celestial court. This lad who has never ascended to immortality, yet he disdains the immortal? Even though the immortal who defied Tao had abandoned the celestial court, he revered the celestial Tao immortal position and still aspired to ascend to immortality. The celestial spirit god, upon hearing Guan's words, didn't get angry, but from his narrowed eyes, it was evident he felt agitated. "You think by not killing me, you can delay the celestial court's attention on the celestial spirit great world. You're wrong. In fact, it's not I who insist on destroying the celestial spirit great world, but this world must perish. That is the celestial order from the celestial court. Although I am interested in that treasure, I can't deny that I extended the lifespan of this great world." The celestial spirit god spoke slowly, his gaze never leaving Guan. Guan's lips curled into a smile and said, "I indeed fear the celestial court, but you can't deny that I let you live. With our positions, you should have been annihilated or forever suffer the sorrows of reincarnation. But now I have given you the opportunity to speak with me. I have even let you create innate immortal gods." The pupils of the celestial spirit god suddenly dilated, as he hadn't expected that his secret maneuvering was seen by Guan. How high was this man's Tao practice? Guan looked at him and asked, "I wonder if an immortal god can create innate immortal gods privately." The face of the celestial spirit god turned ugly. Indeed, Guan was merely probing. He had previously wondered if the celestial spirit god could give birth to innate immortal gods. Why hadn't he created an army of immortal gods? Clearly the celestial court didn't allow such behavior. To become an immortal god of the celestial court, while one could achieve longevity and immortality, one would also lose a lot, especially freedom. "You turned your children into immortal gods, probably not to take revenge on me but to evade the reckoning of the celestial court." Guan continued, and the immortal who defied Tao beside him opened his mouth, intending to remind Guan, but seeing him so confident, he could only hold back his palpitations. In fact, the entire demon city was already enveloped by Guan's Tao intent. There was no fear of leaking anything. Celestial spirit god's eyes flashed with a strange light as he took a deep breath and said, "Speak, what do you wish me to do?" Guan looked at him and said, "I don't ask for much. I don't want to be involved in disputes, and I don't want the celestial court to disturb the celestial spirit great world." Celestial spirit god fell silent for a moment before replying, "A star monarch will come to investigate soon. If the emergence of this great world is beneficial to the celestial court, they will leave this world alone." What sort of beneficial things? To spread the celestial Tao destiny, to revere the celestial court, to make all living beings believe in the heavenly Tao. Celestial spirit god's response sparked Guan's curiosity. Could it be that the celestial court did not intend to conceal its traces, but rather the rulers of all worlds did not wish for all living beings to know of the celestial court's existence? Guan looked at him and said, "All this requires you to be alive, right?" Celestial spirit god fell silent. Guan revealed a smile and said, "How about we collaborate instead? I'll personally teach your son in the future and you can deal with that star monarch for me." Celestial spirit god gave him a deep look and did not object. Then, celestial spirit god soared into the sky, flying towards outer heaven, and Guan did not stop him. Shenzhen couldn't help but ask, "Do you trust him?" Guan turned his head to look at her, smiled and said, "It would be a pity if such a person were to die, wouldn't it? He never did things without certainty." The marks of the Guiyuan divine Tao and the Tao destruction destiny seal remained within celestial spirit god's body. Should celestial spirit god dare to act rashly, he could stop him at once. The Taoless immortal had been silent all along. It wasn't until Celestial Spirit God left the Celestial Spirit Great World that he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Indeed a pity. I've never heard of any immortal gods causing chaos before. This could mean he's not that kind of lowly god. By the way, who is his son? In that demon woman's belly? Shenzhen asked curiously. Guan nodded, then turned his gaze to the Taoless Immortal. His gaze once again made the Taoless Immortal tense up. What do you want to do? The Taoless Immortal asked in a deep voice. Guan asked with a smile, Teacher, do you want to live or do you want to die? The Taoless Immortal cursed inwardly but spoke the truth aloud. Who would want to die? The task of spreading the heavenly Tao and the celestial court will be given to you. You should be quite skilled at it. If you succeed, it'll allow you to hide in this world in the future. We won't interfere with each other, Guan said softly. The Taoless Immortal carefully asked, Really? Really? With that, Guan turned and left, carrying Shenzhen with him into the distance. The Taoless Immortal looked in the direction they left, feeling relieved. His eyes turned chilly. Elsewhere. Guan took Shenzhen to a distant forest. He began, Wait here for me. Su Jin will come to this place. I have matters to attend to. Without waiting for Shenzhen to speak, Guan disappeared from the spot. Shenzhen was taken aback for a moment, then shook her head with a smile. She leapt up, sitting cross-legged on a tree branch, and began to recall Celestial Spirit God's figure. In a dark cave, green candlelight flickered on the walls. The Taoless Immortal opened his eyes, his brows furrowed, and he muttered to himself, How is he still alive? He was the true body, located on the path of the Great Tao, unbelievably distant from the Celestial Spirit Great World, but he could maintain contact with his avatar. Learning that the Black Profound Emperor was still alive and entangled with Celestial Spirit God puzzled him. Were these two really planning to stand against the Celestial Court together? Truly seeking death. The Taoless Immortal began to ponder the arrangement Guan had for his avatar and whether he should collaborate with Guan. He did not notice an additional figure had appeared in the darkness behind him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 599. Unsettled heart. Guan looked at the true form of the Immortal without Tao before him, his expression calm. Immortal without Tao, early stage of Hengtian Golden Immortal Realm 3, 027, 800, 921, 027/5, 000, 000, 000, the old guy who's lived for 30 trillion years. Guan thought expressionlessly. Previously, the reason he had brought along a clone of the Immortal without Tao wasn't to catch up on old times but to investigate the karma of the Immortal without Tao. Even while communicating with the Celestial Spirit God, Guan hadn't stopped exploring the karma of the Immortal without Tao. In the end, following the trajectory of karma, he found the true form of the Immortal without Tao. The gap between their cultivation levels was enormous. Even though Guan was standing right behind the Immortal without Tao, he didn't want the Immortal without Tao to notice him, for then the Immortal without Tao wouldn't be able to detect him. This was the absolute suppression of a heaven-opening Daluo Immortal over a heaven-balancing Golden Immortal. Guan hesitated, wondering whether or not to kill the Immortal without Tao. It would take but a single thought to reduce the Immortal without Tao to dust. But he felt that since the Immortal without Tao had managed to escape from the Celestial Court and survive all these years, he must have other reliance. After so many years, the Immortal without Tao had reached the heaven-balancing Golden Immortal Realm, and must have endured many hardships. Guan guessed the Immortal without Tao would be quite frustrated if he died here without a clue. As Guan pondered this, he raised his right hand. Enough, then I shall cooperate with him for a while. If I can find a place to belong, it beats living in fear here, the Immortal without Tao muttered to himself, beginning to cast spells to transfer more mana to his clone so that the clone could act effectively. Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. A complex expression appeared on his face as he lamented, Why should that brat become so powerful? It's like the Great Tao is blind, damn it. Guan's hand stopped just 10 centimeters away from the Immortal without Tao's shoulder. After casting the spell, the Immortal without Tao closed his eyes, ready to continue his cultivation. Smack. Suddenly, a hand landed on his shoulder, startling him into snapping his eyes open. Then a voice entered his ears, chilling him to the bone, as if he had fallen into a cold cellar. Maybe you're not performing for me, but without patting you, I can't be at ease, master. Dusk was approaching. Su Jin staggered through the forest, her right hand clutching her abdomen, a pained expression on her face. Ever since being slapped by the celestial spirit god, she had felt a burning pain in her abdomen, which pained her heart even more. From that slap, she felt the celestial spirit god's disgust for her. She had searched for him painfully for 10,000 years, then accompanied him in cultivation for another 10,000 years, dedicating herself entirely to him, only to be abandoned in the end. As for the past lives and present lives the celestial spirit god spoke of, she hadn't cared at all. Awakening memories of a past life would make her become someone else? She didn't believe it. The more she thought, the sadder she became, and tears flowed uncontrollably. Her vision started to blur, she felt exhaustion and wanted to collapse and sleep soundly. Suddenly she saw two figures ahead, which alarmed her enough to stop in her tracks. It was a dense forest. The remaining light of dusk spilled between the trees, casting a gloomy and quiet atmosphere. Su Jin's vision cleared, and she frowned as she looked ahead, a sword suddenly appearing in her hand. "Miss Su Jin, long time no see. Do you remember me?" Guan stood up to greet Su Jin and then tucked the green hero travelogue into his chest. Su Jin tightened her brow as she looked at Guan. She seemed to recall something, her eyes widened in astonishment as she asked, "Is it you? Are you still alive?" Guan smiled and said, "If you have nowhere to go, why not come with me? After you give birth to the child, you can go wherever you wish." Su Jin immediately became vigilant, staring at Guan with a defensive face and asked in a stern voice, "What do you want?" Guan's expression changed, causing Su Jin to become momentarily lost in thought. Shenzhen turned her head to look at Guan, filled with curiosity. What divine skill was this? Guan stretched lazily and said, "It's time to go back." Shenzhen nodded. She too wanted to sit down quietly and comprehend the celestial Tao immortal gods. Seasons changed and a year quickly passed by. In the courtyard, Guan opened his eyes and with a thought, an Xian appeared out of nowhere by his side. "Master, what is it?" an Xian asked curiously. Guan stood up and said, "Go and bring that child in according to my previous instructions." And Zin's interest was piqued and she disappeared on the spot. Shenzhen, who was sitting in front of the artifact refining cauldron, turned towards Guan and asked curiously, "Are you really going to adopt that child?" Guan replied, "That child is extraordinary. Having him follow Su Jin will only bring her misfortune, and besides, she should start her life anew." Innate immortal gods, I feel like he's going to stir up a frenzy of competition within the dojo, Shenzhen teased. The qualifications of an innate immortal god must be beyond her imagination, and with Guan's guidance, his cultivation speed must be astonishing. Guan did not argue. He indeed planned to cultivate the child of the celestial spirit god properly. "Do you have some scheme with him that even I don't know about?" Guan looked at the artifact refining cauldron, contemplating silently in his mind. An hour later an Xian returned, holding a baby in her arms. Everyone in the dojo had gathered in Guan's courtyard, as they had heard that Guan was going to take on a disciple. Everyone was curious. What kind of child could catch Guan's attention? Seeing an Xian return, the crowd immediately surrounded her. "This child is so small. How has he already achieved foundation establishment?" "Nonsense, the child must be a genius, able to perform qi absorption cultivation with each breath. Otherwise how could he catch the master's eye? He's so cute, let me hold him." "Cute huh? In 20 years he'll surely be a conceited fellow and then you won't find him so cute." An Xian did not pass the baby to the others. After a brief chat with everyone she approached Guan and handed the swaddled infant to him. Guan held the sleeping infant with a smile appearing on his face. "Such a good boy." Guan began to gently stroke the baby's cheeks, murmuring softly to himself. An Xian prompted, "Master, give him a name, why don't you?" Miss Su Jin said, "It's up to you." She had taken a liking to the baby as soon as she saw him, so she was also looking forward to the changes he would bring to the dojo in the future. Guan pondered and said, "This child is fatherless and can be said to be born of heaven. Let us give him the surname Tian, and name him Hao. He shall be called Tian Hao from now on." Tian Hao. The crowd began to mull over the name, not thinking that Guan would choose it carelessly. An Xian was stunned, muttering to herself, "How?" She held an expectation in her heart and looked forward to how Guan would respond, but unfortunately, Guan did not meet her gaze. Guan lifted little Tian Hao above his head, looked up at Tian Hao and smiled, "From now on, you are my disciple." At the same time, in outer heaven deep in the cosmos, below the world gate, the celestial spirit god who was shimmering with a strong light suddenly opened his eyes, flipped over his right palm, and two characters appeared in his palm. Tianhao. I see, no wonder I could not find it. This twist of fate is truly remarkable. Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable, I have lost to you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 600 Tianhao Immortal Cultivation. The dojo had gained a new little junior brother, and for the disciples who had been diligently cultivating for years, this was an extraordinary event. Everyone went to visit Tianhao and took turns playing with him. The one who spent the most time with Tianhao was the ghost mother of Ephemera. Originally, she just wanted to help Guan share the burden of taking care of Tianhao, but as she watched this little one grow up, her heart began to stir. Especially when Tianhao, at 2 years old, called out to her as mother, she was stunned on the spot. This scene was witnessed by Guan, but he didn't stop it. The ghost mother had always been on the outskirts of the Taoist field of the beginningless, unable to blend in with the other disciples, and her actions over the years had already made Guan consider her as one of his own. Tianhao's presence was a perfect opportunity to break down the barriers between her and the Taoist field of the beginningless. With Tianhao's arrival, time within the Taoist field of the beginningless seemed to pass even more slowly. In the blink of an eye, Tianhao had reached the age of 17. Without any real cultivation, Tianhao had already achieved the Mahayana realm cultivation level. He only needed to breathe and his cultivation would surge, much to the envy and stimulation of Lvxian, Chen Chuan, and others. Shenzhen, on the other hand, thought it was normal. Aside from Guan, she was the only person in the dojo who knew that Tianhao was an innate immortal god. The immortal spirits of the immortal dynasty were naturally in the nirvana realm at birth, so innate immortal gods should be even more extraordinary. She even felt that Tianhao's growth rate was a bit slow. On this day, Tianhao arrived at Guan's courtyard, and before he could be seen, his voice was heard, "Master! Master! Master!" An XN, who was meditating in front of the artifact refining cauldron, turned to look, and became momentarily lost in a daze. In the sunlight, Tianhao wore a tight-fitting white robe, embellished with intricate gold thread, which made him appear even more dashing. He had a handsome face with his hair tied up high, and 2 strands of hair fluttering in front like willow fluff. Looking at him, an XN felt as if she saw an Hao, which stirred a mixture of emotions in her. Guan was lounging in a chair taking a nap. Without opening his eyes, he asked, "What's all the fuss about? You're so loud." Tianhao came over with excitement and said, "Master, when I woke up this morning, I discovered I have a new amazing ability." Although 17-year-old Tianhao hadn't completely shed his childishness, his facial features had matured, and he was very handsome. Before Guan could speak, the nearby NXN asked curiously, "What ability?" Shenzhen also glanced at Tianhao. She was the person in the dojo who interacted with Tianhao the least. As she seldom spoke to him, Tianhao was a bit afraid of her from a young age, feeling she was not someone to be trifled with. Tianhao turned around, raised his right hand, and as he focused on his palm, something gathered there under the watchful eyes of an Xian and Shenzhen. Strands of golden flames swiftly wrapped around each other, forming a fireball, and within this fireball emitted a light. At first glance, it seemed like a tiny sun. And Xian and Shenzhen's expressions changed, because they could feel that the flames Tianhao had summoned were not ordinary. "This fire never extinguishes. I've tried it. If I release it, it can float in the air and keep burning," Tianhao said with a proud smile. Although he hadn't formally started immortal cultivation, he was already aware of its existence. As for immortal cultivation, he didn't see it as all that important, because he was getting stronger every moment. Tianhao looked toward Guan, wanting to see his master's reaction, only to find that the master was still lying on the chair with his eyes closed. "Master!" Tianhao shouted loudly, startling the birds in the forest into flight. Guan dug in his ears, rolled over, and stood up. He looked helplessly at Tianhao, who then raised his hand as if offering a treasure, showing the small sun to his master. "Is that it?" Guan looked disdainful, his tone filled with contempt. Just as Tianhao was about to retort, Guan raised his hand, his palm facing the celestial vault. In almost an instant, the entire world plunged into crimson, and the temperature between heaven and earth soared. Tianhao subconsciously looked up, then his mouth fell open, his face showing an expression of disbelief. And Xian and Shenzhen looked up to see a colossal sun occupying the entire celestial vault, with no edges visible in any direction. Oppressive, awe-inspiring. It was the first time Tianhao had witnessed such a spectacular sight. He had lived for 17 years, all within the Taoist field of the beginningless, where no disciples had engaged in combat, So this was truly his first real encounter with the power of the immortal Tao. He shuffled his feet, turned around and looked in all directions, gradually becoming excited, his body starting to tremble. The corners of Guan's mouth lifted, and with a squeeze of his right hand, the blazing sun in the sky suddenly vanished as if it had never been there, but the warmth still felt around him told Tianhao that what he had just seen was no illusion. Tianhao turned to look at Guan, suddenly exhilarated, and ran to kneel beside him, grasping Guan's arm excitedly saying, "Master, teach me. I want to cultivate as an immortal." Having grown up, he naturally understood the difference between a master and a father. Since his master had taken him as a disciple, he would certainly teach him to cultivate. Go to the Qingkuan sect for immortal cultivation. Guan raised his hand to touch Tianhao's head, speaking with a soft smile. The Qingkuan sect? Tianhao showed a look of confusion. Guan looked toward an Xian. Coming back to her senses, she asked, "Now?" As soon as he asks, we should send him. It's just right to let her meet him and dispel the regrets in her heart, said Guan, then vanished into thin air. Tianhao stood there, stunned, then got up and looked toward an Xian. An Xian calmed her emotions, her face returning to its usual dignity, and she walked toward the courtyard gate. Tianhao looked at Shenzhen, intending to greet him, but seeing Shenzhen's indifferent gaze, he quickly turned his head away and then quickened his pace to catch up with an Xian. Universe World Gate. The celestial spirit god, exuding endless divine light, opened his eyes, and reflected in his pupils were the figures of Tianhao and an Xian. He's finally come out. What exactly do you want to do? The celestial spirit god murmured to himself. Ever since Tianhao was taken away by an Xian, he had been unable to peek into Tianhao's specific circumstances, and it didn't take much to guess that it had to do with Guan. He had originally thought that Guan would hide Tianhao away, but he didn't expect Guan to let Tianhao out. Watching the way Tianhao questioned an Xian, a sense of feeling emerged in his heart that he couldn't quite define or articulate. In truth, he didn't really care about Tianhao. The reason he helped Tianhao become an innate immortal god was to give Su Jin a chance at life. Now it seemed that Guan wouldn't harm Su Jin, but his creation of an innate immortal god might instead sow the seeds of some disaster. He had gone through countless reincarnations, and the ones Guan had led him through were only a small part of it. He had experienced various relationships, had kinship, and his heart had long been calm. He looked down on Tianhao coldly, with not a trace of pity in his heart. He just wanted to see what heights his created innate immortal gods would achieve. Silence reigned in the universe and he just stared motionlessly at Tianhao. Time passed, the length unknown. The celestial spirit god seemed to sense something, and he raised his left hand, from which a golden token flew out, and a voice from within said, "Celestial spirit god, I didn't expect you to slack off either. I will be arriving soon. Get ready, at least don't let me see any trouble." Sir, the novel, Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 601. A great opportunity. In the early morning, a dense fog enveloped the land, and mountain peaks emerged like the tips of swords, resembling an ethereal immortal realm of the human world. Atop one of the mountains, there lay a courtyard filled with flora, and a slender-limbed white dog sprawled on the ground, deep in slumber. Suddenly the door swung open and Li Xuanyu, dressed in a white robe, stepped out. The sunlight swept over the distant peaks and fell upon her. She raised her right hand and a petal drifted into her palm. She looked down at it, her gaze cold. A female disciple soared on her flying sword across the sea of clouds, swiftly entering the courtyard. Before she even touched the ground, her flying sword swiftly shrank and flew into her sleeve. After landing, she took 2 steps forward and smiled. "Master, a talent of unprecedented caliber has recently emerged from Qingkuan sect. All the branches are vying for him, Master. We should not miss this opportunity." As Dao Court's fame grew, Qingkuan sect also began to emulate Dao Court, establishing different branches to nurture healthy competition and to better manage power. Li Xuanyu, now a branch leader and an elder of Qingkuan sect, had stayed on even after Tang Kai left. See the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Hearing the disciple's words, Li Xuanyu appeared indifferent and said, "There are many talents, why bother competing? This one is different, he comes from the Forbidden Lands. Brought to Qingkuan sect personally by an immortal." The disciple hurriedly explained. "Forbidden Lands." Li Xuanyu's expression shifted slightly, She was well aware of the forbidden lands and knew that the immortal was an Xen. Why would an immortal bring his disciple into Chen Kuan's sect? Li Xuanyu asked. I wondered about that too, but now I understand. That disciple called Tianhao is truly extraordinary. The sect hierarch has already designated him as the next sect hierarch. The disciple was excited, her face full of admiration as she spoke of Tianhao. Curious, Li Xuanyu inquired, is he really that impressive? The disciple nodded fervently and said, it's said that upon joining the sect, he mastered the great divine power on the inheritance pillar after just one look. It's unbelievable. Li Xuanyu pondered thoughtfully. Tianhao, she hesitated, contemplating whether to try to forge more connections with Guan, yet hesitant to disturb him. She had nothing particular to ask of Guan, it was just an inexplicable desire to understand him. How had Guan come to such a distant place, and why did he possess such formidable cultivation level? What adversities had he faced? While the disciple continued to explain the benefits of accepting Tianhao into their branch, Li Xuanyu listened, but her thoughts had already drifted elsewhere. Time flies. A millennium passed in the blink of an eye. With the thunderclouds dispersed above Chen Kuan's sect, Guan and Li Xuanyu sat in a tavern on the second floor, drinking as they leaned against the window. Below, the street was filled with cultivators looking up to the sky. Is Tianhao even human? To climb from the Mahayana realm to the wandering immortal realm in 1,000 years is just too exaggerated. Could he be a reincarnation of immortal gods? Very likely, given that he was personally brought into the sect by an immortal. Anyway, such a talent is beneficial to us. He could lead Chen Kuan's sect to a peak it has never before reached. Exactly, rather than feeling jealous, we should look forward to it. Listening to the discussions at other tables, Li Xuanyu glanced at Guan, wondering whether to ask, yet unsure if she should. Guan swirled his wineglass, laughing. When I first found him, I felt he was different from the rest, and sure enough, even I find it unbelievable. Li Xuanyu spoke softly, is that so? I don't believe in so many coincidences. From Enzin's strength, it was clear that Guan was adept at teaching disciples, so Li Xuanyu attributed all of Tianhao's talents to Guan, convinced that Guan had been guiding Tianhao in secret. She was qualified to say this. After Tianhao became her disciple, she started by teaching him with all her heart, but soon Tianhao's understanding of Taoist technique surpassed hers, as if aided by divine intervention. Thinking of this, she was filled with emotion. She could never forget the expression on Yi Qingshen's face when he handed Tianhao over to her. Not only did she acquire Tianhao, but her branch also received better treatment. In just 1,000 years, the branch she managed had reached the top 10 in the sect rankings, not only attracting more talented disciples but also receiving help from many noble families, who sent numerous great cultivators. She knew that all the treatment she now enjoyed was brought about by Guan. Why did you send him to my sect? You know I can't really teach him anything. Li Xuanyu finally asked. Guan drained his glass of wine and laughed. Whoever took him, it would have been the same, none could really teach him. This is a great heavenly opportunity. As long as he joined the Chen Kuan sect, it would be the sect's opportunity. As for who should teach him, naturally I would choose someone I trust. It's not just because of our old friendship. I also wanted to leave some good karma for senior brother Li. Hearing Guan mention Li Ya, Li Xuanyu felt a sense of relief and more at ease. Li Xuanyu then asked, why not visit my Dao mountain? Guan looked out the window saying, I just like lively places like this. You're always in seclusion, don't you find it stifling? While speaking, he raised his left hand to support his face, his eyes lazy. Li Xuanyu also looked out the window, watching the people coming and going on the street. She wasn't sure if it was just her imagination, but she felt a certain mood as well. Although Guan was watching the street, his heart was actually looking towards outer heaven. The world gate was stirring. A figure was walking out amid the intense light. Celestial Spirit God, finding this great thousand world was not easy. Was it your doing, or has the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable not completely fallen? A laughing voice emanated from the world gate, and immediately after, a gray-robed Taoist stepped out. He had the appearance of a young child with white hair, holding a horsetail whisk in one hand and a white jade bottle in the other, his body surrounded by an aura of immortality that faintly sparkled with silver light, as if containing stars. The Celestial Spirit God stood up and turned to face the newcomer. The divine light around him dissipated, revealing his true form, still bearing the face of Bai Shen. Greetings, deity of the moon. Though the Celestial Spirit God's tone was cold, he still bowed to the deity of the moon. The deity of the moon smiled. He approached the Celestial Spirit God and chuckled, how many years has it been? Have you still not found that treasure? The celestial spirit god replied, What treasure? I'm not aware. The reason I haven't destroyed this world is because I see a destiny here that is favorable for the celestial court. The deity of the moon glanced into the depths of the universe, saying, The celestial Tao destiny is indeed rising, and the name of the celestial court is spreading. However, I know what you truly desire. The celestial spirit god's face remained unchanged, quietly staring at the deity of the moon. After a while, the deity of the moon withdrew his gaze. He looked at the deity of the moon and said, With your talent, your cultivation level shouldn't be this low. When will you ascend? The celestial spirit god answered, The heavenly Tao will decide. I only need to stay at my immortal position and wait quietly for the heavenly Tao. Haha, if you don't bow your head, how can he allow the heavenly Tao to fall upon you? The deity of the moon taunted. The celestial spirit god fell silent once more. The deity of the moon's expression turned cold as he said, Do something for me, and I will help conceal your crimes, allowing you and this great thousand world to continue to exist. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 602, 1,000-year-old wandering immortal, 100-year-old ascending immortal facing the gaze of the deity of the moon. The celestial spirit god was silent for a while before he spoke. What is it? The deity of the moon raised the white jade bottle in his hand, from which radiance escaped, rapidly spreading to form an invisible barrier. He stared back at the celestial spirit god and slowly uttered 4 words, spreading influence, sealing fate. The celestial spirit god frowned, a trace of a strange color flashing in his eyes. You can think it over. I'll take a trip to the great world. It's rare for me to come here, so I might as well have a good travel around. With those words, the deity of the moon turned and left. The celestial spirit god didn't stop him. He stood there, watching as the deity of the moon departed. Far away in the Chenkuan sect, Guan heard their conversation. The methods of the deity of the moon could not stop Guan from spying. This deity of the moon possessed a mid-stage Taiching golden immortal realm cultivation level, and the celestial Tao destiny about him was extremely dense. Because of his words, Guan became even more interested in the celestial spirit god. The celestial spirit god seemed to have a stronger background than he had anticipated. Regarding the arrival of the deity of the moon in the celestial spirit great world, Guan was not worried that Tianhao would be discovered. He had already sealed Tianhao's destiny pattern, leaving only his talent and comprehension. If his destiny pattern were released, Tianhao's power would reach an incredibly exaggerated level. It would be impossible to meet an opponent within the same realm, as the whole heaven and earth would aid Tianhao. Not only was Tianhao an innate immortal god, but also the child of heaven and earth. No one in the celestial spirit great world could kill him, and even leaving this great world he could still borrow the celestial Tao destiny. Such was his destiny pattern, born to reign above all beings. Even with his destiny pattern sealed and without the aid of heaven, earth, and the celestial Tao, Tianhao remained the being with the strongest talent and comprehension in the entire heaven and earth. Guan retracted his thoughts and began to focus on chatting with Li Xuanyu. It was rare to have an old friend near the dojo, so naturally he wanted to have a chat with Li Xuanyu. The two drank wine and discussed the interesting affairs under heaven, enjoying themselves immensely. Li Xuanyu's Tao heart also relaxed. She couldn't help but wonder, perhaps enjoying leisure time appropriately could enhance her cultivation? Days later, a majestic Tianhao arrived in Guan's courtyard. His figure was tall and straight, donning a binding Tao robe specially made by the Chenkuan sect that could actively absorb spiritual energy. As he walked, an aura of immortality swirled around him, his sleeves fluttering in the wind, exuding a detached and elegant charm. Master, I have reached the wandering immortal realm. Do you know what 1,000-year-old wandering immortal signifies? Tianhao approached Guan with hands on his hips and a proud smile. Guan didn't restrict his movements. Even after joining the Chenkuan sect, he still came back often. Guan, who was reading a book, didn't lift his head and said, Does it mean reaching the wandering immortal realm in 1,000 years? He thought back carefully. He had not even been 100 years old when he reached the wandering immortal realm. Not only that, he had broken through to the heaven and earth flying immortal realm at 96. Hearing Guan's words, Tianhao couldn't help but widen his eyes and exclaimed loudly, Master, can't you praise me just once? Guan looked at him helplessly and said irritably, How old are you, still making such a fuss? Besides them in the courtyard was another person, Shenzhen, who sat in front of the artifact refining cauldron without looking at Tianhao. Hearing Guan's words, Tianhao instinctively looked toward Xinjun, and seeing Xinjun frown slightly, he gave an awkward smile. He quickly changed the subject and asked in a lowered voice, "Master, is the Green Hero Travelogue any good? Give me a copy, I couldn't find this book in the Chenkuan sect." Guan immediately tucked the Green Hero Travelogue away and stood up, looking at Tianhao seriously. "Do you think your cultivation level is sufficient?" Tianhao replied, "Not enough, but I will become stronger." He was full of confidence, feeling that cultivation was the easiest thing in the world. Looking at him, Guan asked, "Would you like to spar with your master?" At those words, Tianhao's eyes lit up with excitement. "Can I?" He had long wanted to test out his master's prowess. Sar the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Now a wandering immortal, he could also create a sun that blotted out the sky, and any spell or divine skill he only needed to see once to master, which also made his protective methods quite extensive. Xinjun turned her head to look at the master and disciple with interest. Figures appeared in the courtyard. They were an Xin, celestial demon child, Qin Xuan and others. They all heard Tianhao's words. Hearing that this youngster dared to challenge Guan, they all became excited. "You brat, you'd better give it your all," the Blood Prison Great Saint teased. And Xingtan laughed, "After sparring with the ancestor, have a match with me." He had already become a wandering immortal and wanted to test Tianhao's capabilities. Qin Xuan and LV Xian issued a challenge, and Tianhao accepted them all in one breath. The ghost mother of ephemera opened her mouth, wanting to persuade Tianhao, but she had no standing to do so here. She looked towards Guan and seeing that he was not angry, felt somewhat more at ease. Guan twisted his neck and raised his hand to snap his fingers. In an instant, the surrounding environment dramatically changed, and everyone found themselves on a gloomy wasteland, under a cosmic starry sky, with an exceptionally broad view. Tianhao was stunned by Guan's move and dazedly looked all around. The others were equally shocked by the scene before them. It's not an illusion. It's real. There's still spiritual energy here, although it's thinner than inside the dojo. What divine skills are these? So formidable, completely impenetrable. What a perfect place. Only here can one truly let loose. The previous barrier was too small, unsuitable for battles to the death. What? You still want to fight to the death with your own people? The crowd buzzed with discussion, all very excited. Guan soared into the air, turned in the sky, and looked down at Tianhao with a smile. "Show me whatever abilities you have." As soon as the words fell, a heaven-piercing momentum erupted from Tianhao, shocking the others into quickly gathering their mana to form protective barriers. Everyone was surprised by Tianhao's display, even an Xin seemed somewhat bewildered. They knew Tianhao's cultivation level advanced at an astonishing pace, but only when they truly felt his aura did they find it incredible. Just a mere 1,000 years and this brat surpassed them already? Especially those who loved to undergo closed-door cultivation, they all had a sense of absurdity. It was as if they had woken from sleep to find the baby from before had grown stronger than themselves. How could they accept this? Tianhao started walking towards Guan. The celestial Dao true fire surged out from his body, blazing fiercely, taking the form of 9 fire dragons coiling around him. Behind his head, a sun rapidly grew in size, his black hair waving violently, his expression becoming arrogant. His lips curled up involuntarily, radiating an air of untouchable superiority. Guan gazed down at him, thinking of Anhao. Anhao and Tianhao's figures overlapped at this moment. "Master, I will surprise you." Tianhao's voice echoed through the cosmic starry sky. Chenkuan sect. Amidst a range of mountains, a stream flowed by, and next to the river stood a small pavilion. Yiqingshan, Lin Xuan, Qingmeng, Gu Changxing, and Gu Qingdao sat inside the pavilion. The 5 of them were the highest authorities of the Chenkuan sect, with Yiqingshan as the sect hierarch, and the other 4 as elders with great power. Even though they were high in status and entangled in many interests, they still gathered together whenever they had a chance. Big brother, Tianhao's talent is indeed beyond ordinary. With his recent breakthrough to the wandering immortal realm, I'm afraid we can't keep him hidden any longer, Gu Changxing said with concern. Lin Xuan sighed, "More than his reputation, I worry that he will become arrogant. Honestly, the last time I faced him, I could no longer suppress him. He's had too smooth a ride, never faced hardship, and it's hard to imagine what kind of person he'll become in the future." Qingming rolled her eyes at him. "What's there to fear? He's not just backed by the Chenkuan sect, he has elder and to guide him." "That may be true, but you've also met Tianhao. The boy isn't arrogant or domineering, but he's very proud. Once he's set on something, nobody can tell him otherwise. The four discussed among themselves while Yi Qingshan remained silent, sipping his spiritual tea, lost in thought. Just then, a figure descended from the sky and landed outside the pavilion, prompting all five to look over and rise to their feet in shock. The newcomer was Tian Hao. At that moment, Tian Hao had a somber face and his gaze was full of oppression. A sudden unease gripped the hearts of those in the pavilion. Had the brat overheard their conversation? Tian Hao took a deep breath and said, "Sect hierarch for elders, I want to grow stronger. From today onwards, please instruct me. Whatever you teach, I'm willing to learn." Lin Chuan frowned. "What can we teach you? Soon enough you will surpass us. My master told me to earnestly experience the Qingkuan sect with you. You don't need to teach me spells or divine skills, just teach me how to conduct myself." Tian Hao said, unable to help but clench his fists. He was not angry or frustrated. He was afraid. Recalling the recent sparring session, chills ran down his spine. Qing Meng seemed to notice something was off and asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" Tian Hao shook his head. "I'm fine, I just went back to the forbidden area after my breakthrough and had a round of sparring with my master." Hearing this, the five people in the pavilion exchanged glances. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 603, Celestial Court Mythology. Tian Hao's meteoric rise brought unprecedented morale to the Qingkuan sect. His 1,000-year journey as a wandering immortal shook both the past and the present, spreading the sect's name far and wide. Over the long years, many came to recruit Tian Hao, including members of the Dao court, but these endeavors always amounted to nothing. There were also geniuses who challenged Tian Hao, all of whom were defeated. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years passed. In the Dao court, within Shaolan's cave heaven dojo, by a mountain stream, Shaolan, who had just broken through to the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, was discussing its power with Guan. The two sat cross-legged on a huge boulder, a small table placed between them with fine wine and spirit fruit upon it. As Shaolan shared her experiences and pondered the true meaning of heaven and earth, she was unaware that the person before her, whom she held dear, was merely an avatar. Guan's gaze subtly shifted, and his true self replaced the avatar. He had just returned from collecting medicinal herbs at the mountain god temple on Tai Tsang continent, feeling pleased. He called up his attribute panel and began to admire it. Frowny face name, Guan, lifespan, 45 402/760 382 411 523, physique, primordial reincarnation undying body, cultivation level, heaven opening Daluo immortal realm perfection. The 1 trillion years of life were drawing ever closer. Guan liked this peaceful and tranquil life, devoid of external foes, yet his lifespan continued to grow steadily. For him, the lifespan digits were like the experience bar in a video game. Shaolan picked up a cup of wine, drank it down in one gulp and said, "Many peerless geniuses have emerged in the world. The current top genius is not from the Dao court but from a sect known as the Qingkuan sect. His name is Tian Hao, a name as audacious as the heavens themselves. Yet his breakthrough speed is truly inconceivable. He seems to be just over 11,000 years old and has already achieved the cultivation level of a carefree primordial immortal." Upon mentioning Tian Hao, her face showed her deep emotions. Guan laughed and said, "You aren't doing too badly either. The path of immortal cultivation isn't about who's faster, but who lives longer." Shaolan shook her head and chuckled, feeling that Guan didn't recognize the terror of Tian Hao. She changed the subject. "Recently there's been widespread talk of heavenly Dao and the appearance of many mythical narratives, claiming that beyond our world exist more powerful immortal gods from the celestial court. The myths of the celestial court indeed spread throughout the world, backed by the efforts of Dao immortals and the meddling of the deity of the moon. As more and more beings became aware of these myths, the celestial Dao destiny within the world began to rise noticeably, and the celestial Dao light layer above the celestial spirit great world grew increasingly bright. This also made Guan realize something. Despite the difference between immortals and mortals, the celestial court did want all beings to be aware of their existence. In the currently circulating myths of the celestial court, the most formidable was the profound star immortal monarch. He was omnipotent, creating heavens and earth, could hear the hearts of all living beings and could save them from their suffering. The profound star immortal monarch was the master of the deity of the moon, who was zealously crafting the immortal monarch's image. Guan had an impression of this immortal god. Before the reconstruction of the world, this god's followers roamed the human world, widely spreading his name. This resulted in many ancient texts written by old believers, allowing descendants to learn of history and further believe in these myths. It is worth mentioning that many imperial dynasties in the human world have faith in the profound star immortal monarch and have even established a destiny connection with it. For example, Li Xiandao of the Taizong dynasty was the earliest person to receive the power of the profound star immortal monarch, which occurred in the previous era. Gu Wen had never interfered with this matter because, in his view, everyone has their own fortunes, and he preferred to observe the development of all things from the sidelines. Xiaolan could not comprehend the existence of immortal gods. In her opinion, those with great power from the Tao court were already the strongest beings. How could there be immortal gods even more powerful than them? Having reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, she felt almost omnipotent and even wanted to venture to outer heaven. It was hard for her to imagine just how powerful the mythical immortal gods, if they truly existed, would be. Xiaolan began to conspire, suspecting that there were forces beneath the heavens harboring the intent to subvert the Tao court. The Tao court is the common master of the world, equivalent to the heavenly Tao, and essentially assumes the role of immortal gods, making rules for heaven and earth. Now that all beings are aware that there are even more formidable immortal gods above the Tao court, what should they think of the Tao court? Gu Wen did not pay much attention to Xiaolan's thoughts. Everyone has a perspective, and Xiaolan, now situated within the Tao court, would naturally consider its interests. The world is still too vast, and the Tao court has not fully unified heaven and earth, Gu Wen sighed. Xiaolan picked up the liquor bottle and while pouring Gu Wen a drink asked, "Why is it always me talking? Brother Gu, don't you have any questions or is there something you desire? I can help you obtain it now." Gu Wen replied with a smile, "Don't worry about me. I was originally just an ordinary person. To have come this far, I'm already very satisfied. I know what you're worried about. I have not lost my freedom. While you've been in seclusion, I often went out for a walk. I've made quite a few friends in the Tao court. I'm truly content, and my greatest joy is hearing others marvel at your prowess. It makes me proud as well." Xiaolan was deeply touched by his words. She put down the liquor bottle, rose involuntarily, then moved closer to Gu Wen, looking at him with affection. Xiaolan held Gu Wen's hand. He didn't refuse, watching her slowly lean closer to him. When Xiaolan's face obscured the lower half of Gu Wen's face, his eyes looked up to the heavens. At that moment, Leo was being intercepted by the deity of the moon. See the novel, Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Wave after wave crashed onto the beach. Dressed in black, Leo frowned deeply, staring coldly at the deity of the moon who was blocking his path. "What exactly do you want?" Leo asked bluntly, his right hand resting on the hilt of his sword at his waist. The deity of the moon smiled and said, "Your fate has deviated from the trajectory that the heavenly Tao had laid out for you. It seems you've had the help of a noble person, and not only that, but this change is ongoing. In the future you might even form a connection with immortal gods. Although I'm not sure which immortal god it is, a bit of immortal fate has indeed touched you." Leah scoffed disdainfully and retorted, "What about you? Are you one of those sanctimonious Taoists who espouse the heavenly Tao and the celestial court? I don't believe in immortals and I don't believe in gods. If there truly were immortal gods, how could this world have suffered so many tribulations, and each time, it must rely on his junior brother Gu to save the day? If there truly were immortal gods, then it could only be junior brother Gu. The nature of junior brother Gu would not allow others to sing his praises." The deity of the moon smiled, waved the horsetail whisk in his right hand towards the white jade bottle in his left, and from the mouth of the bottle, a droplet of liquid flew out, suspending between the two. "Our meeting is also a kind of fate. This is immortal brew, capable of transforming you completely, bestowing upon you an innate body. Let this be the foundation of a good relationship," said the deity of the moon with a smile. No sooner had he spoken than the droplet of immortal brew struck Li Ya's forehead fiercely. He had no chance to dodge. Li Ya, startled, quickly reached for his forehead, but there was nothing to touch. He could not track the droplet of immortal brew, nor could he detect any abnormalities within his body. The deity of the moon turned and walked away saying, "This great world is no simple place. In the future there will surely be many exciting stories to unfold." Interesting. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 604. Trillion Years Lifespan, Lifespan Projection. Watching the departing figure of the deity of the moon, Leah still felt uneasy. He checked himself for a long time on the spot, and after confirming that there was nothing abnormal about him, the deity of the moon had already disappeared. A divine exotic immortal spirit appeared out of thin air, seemingly leaping suddenly onto his shoulder and curiously asked, "Could you see through that person's cultivation level just now?" Leah regained his composure, furrowed his brows and said, "I couldn't see through. If he was really helping you just now, then boy, your Fuyuan is outrageously strong to encounter such great opportunities even on the road," the divine exotic immortal spirit remarked. After hearing the words of the deity of the moon, it had actually believed them. Indeed, there was a powerful backer behind Leah, just hidden in the shadows, not always watching over Leah. Yet, Leah kept encountering various opportunities, which compelled it to ponder Leah's destiny pattern. Could it be that Leah's destiny pattern has become very strong now? Leah, on the other hand, was thinking about the identity of the deity of the moon. Over the years, he had increasingly felt the changes in the great heaven and earth, with more and more outstanding figures and great powers emerging, making him feel like a mere mortal, very insecure. Leah took a deep breath, leaped up and flew towards the sea. The sea wind howled, and the divine exotic immortal spirit stood on his shoulder, pulling at his earlobe and asked, "Leah, are you really going to the Tao Court? I heard that the Tao Court is created by top cultivators from different great worlds. If you cause trouble there, it will be very troublesome." "What do you mean, am I the kind of person who loves to cause trouble?" "How so? Don't you know yourself?" "I never act recklessly, it's just that those people are too oppressive." Yes, you're always right. You can't stand others being bullied, but who reaches out to help you when you suffer? Isn't today's opportunity a repayment? Do good deeds without asking about the future." Leah hummed, not wanting to continue this conversation. Changing the subject, he asked, "Do you think Tian Hao is really that powerful? Born in an unknown small sect, yet he has become famous throughout the world, a 1,000-year-old wandering immortal, that's too fake." "The person is now not a wandering immortal but a carefree primordial immortal," joked the divine exotic immortal spirit. "If and Hao were still here, would he allow this Tian Hao to be so prestigious?" Leah lamented. He considered En Hao as his greatest rival in life. Unfortunately, En Hao was no longer in this world, and every time he thought of this, his heart ached and he felt regret. The divine exotic immortal spirit fell into contemplation. And Hao, Tian Hao, both named Hao, could it be such a coincidence? On the other side, seeing that Leah was unharmed, Guan then wrapped his arms around Xiaolan's waist, starting to respond to her affection. After a while, Guan suddenly pushed Xiaolan away, embarrassedly saying, "Under the broad daylight, isn't it inappropriate?" Xiaolan hooked his neck, her eyes flirty, and she licked her lips, softly saying, "Brother Gu, don't be afraid, this is my grotto heaven, just you and me. With the sunlight I can clearly see everything I enjoy." With that she kissed Guan again. Guan's tightly clenched hands involuntarily opened. So be it. After seeing Leah, the deity of the moon left the celestial spirit great world, flew to the world gate, briefly chatted with the celestial spirit, then entered the world gate. Guan witnessed the whole process, feeling that the threat from the celestial court was temporarily over, and there would be a long period of peace. Indeed it was so. Human affairs were like tides, but these tides could not shake Guan. His time naturally passed even faster. In the blink of an eye, more than 6,000 years had passed. On this day, as Guan was picking medicinal herbs in the Taoist field of the beginningless, his hand paused as 3 prompts appeared before him. "You have successfully harvested dandelion grass, Tier 4, adding 30 years to your lifespan. Your lifespan has surpassed 1 trillion years for the first time, activating the lifespan projection feature." Lifespan projection. You can expend lifespan to project into the great Tao worlds, materializing 3,000 projected selves to pursue different great Taos. Before projecting, you can only choose one great Tao to chase. The projected selves cannot be deduced and you cannot retain their memories, but you can gain their insights into the great Tao. This feature, it somewhat resembled the lifespan reincarnation, yet it was different. CTH Nafire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lifespan reincarnation felt as if Guan was experiencing it himself, and its outcomes were unknown, whereas lifespan projection seemed more like a method of reincarnation to comprehend the great Tao. Guan decided he would try it later, as the projected selves couldn't be deduced. Using this feature likely wouldn't cause any trouble. He continued to pick herbs while reviewing the lifespan features he had activated. Lifespan detection, lifespan barrier, lifespan deduction, lifespan prediction, lifespan fusion, lifespan reincarnation, lifespan simulation, lifespan dojo, lifespan breakthrough, lifespan projection. Although he scarcely used half of these features, he was not averse to having more lifespan functions. It's fine not to use them, but impossible not to have them. Guan's mood improved. Having reached his current realm, it was no longer about simple qi absorption but about comprehending the great Tao. The stronger his Tao intent, the higher his cultivation level would be. This was an intangible method of cultivation, beyond the understanding of mortal spirits. Seeing that Guan was in a good mood, the ghost mother of ephemera who was following him carefully asked, "Master, if Tian Hao encounters great trouble outside, would you intervene?" Over the 6,000 years, although Tian Hao remained a carefree primordial immortal, his renown had grown significantly since he could battle across realms. Once, while on an expedition with the Chengquan sect, he had actually annihilated the physical body of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. That battle had vastly spread his fame, and he became known as the unmatched #1 prodigy in the world. Great fame inevitably brought more troubles. More and more prodigies came to challenge Tian Hao but were soundly defeated. There were also those forces that wanted to enlist Tian Hao. Tian Hao's rejections inevitably made enemies. Recently, the ghost mother of ephemera had been restless. Though she felt exceedingly safe within the dojo, she could only think that perhaps Tian Hao was in danger. Guan laughed and said, "Great trouble? There's no trouble that great. What if there is? Don't worry, he is unlike any prodigy you've met. He won't die young, his destiny pattern destined him to become the strongest. You simply don't understand what he represents. Even without me, his brilliance would shine bright." Guan explained, knowing that the ghost mother of ephemera had the closest relationship with Tian Hao, even regarding her as a mother. He didn't mind revealing some karma to her. Hearing this, the ghost mother of ephemera immediately felt relief. Although she didn't fully understand how powerful Tian Hao's destiny pattern was, she felt reassured by Guan's words. Usually there's no need to be too diligent in managing the dojo, you also need time for enlightenment. The Tao treasure I bestowed upon you is your best aid in cultivation. Guan spoke sincerely. He had crafted a Tao treasure for the ghost mother of ephemera known as the 9 Netherworlds Heaven Reversing Flag. This flag embodied the path of yin and yang, it could reverse Tsangtian in all things and was extremely domineering. "I won't forget about cultivating." The ghost mother of ephemera spoke earnestly, but to herself she added, "Nor forget about managing the dojo." She was well aware of why she possessed all that she did now. She could not relax, could not abandon the path she had taken, and must strive even harder. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 605. Wrapping up the projection. After harvesting the ripe medicinal herbs, Guan left alone, while the ghost mother of ephemera started to sow as usual. Guan did not return to his own yard, he just picked a random direction to walk. As he walked, he fiddled with the fate pen. He seemed to be enjoying the scenery along the way, but he was actually watching Zhang Buku, who was far away in the Tai's Great World. Zhang Buku had taken root in the Tai's Great World and had even established a demon race force. Su Yu, a reincarnation from the Celestial Court, assisted him by teaching him the Qi Fortune method, which made his demon race force stronger and made cultivation easier and more fortunate for those under his command. Seeing Zhang Buku's accomplishments now, Guan was very pleased. At least Zhang Buku did not have to wander everywhere. He had found his own life goal. What would senior brother Zhang's feelings be like if he were still alive and saw his son commanding the winds and clouds? With this thought, Guan felt even better. The advantage of staying in the human world is that there are always different things happening, something even the immortal gods may not experience. Even if many things seem similar, they always present differently when experienced by different people. After an hour, Guan arrived at a waterfall and sat on the rocks by the river, then he began to perform lifespan projection. Please choose the great Tao you want to pursue. Path of cause and effect. This was the great Tao Guan was most skilled in. Consumption of 100 billion years of lifespan. Do you wish to continue? What the hell? 1 trillion years of lifespan. Guan cursed internally. He knew the new features would not be so easy to use. The later the features were released, the greater the consumption of lifespan. He subconsciously wanted to choose to refuse, but on second thought there was a reason behind the high cost. At least he wanted to see how expensive it was. If not satisfactory, he could simply seal this feature forever. Continue. You have chosen to consume 100 billion years of lifespan to activate lifespan projection. Starting projection. Projected onto the Taiwei Great World. Projected onto the Taiching Great World. Projected onto the Nine Nether Great World. Prompt after prompt continually popped up before Guan's eyes, arousing his curiosity. He could actually see the specific worlds being projected. Guan saw the Tai's Great World where Zhang Buku was, and he also saw the profound pure Great World visited by the Black Profound Emperor. He even saw worlds that were not named as Great Worlds. Though he only saw the names, it was enough to let his thoughts run wild. Soon all the prompts settled down. It really had projected 3,000 worlds. Guan reflected on this, but soon he felt that something was amiss. The projection was finished, then what? Guan furrowed his brows. He was puzzled but not rushed. He sat on the rock patiently waiting. Time swiftly passed. About half an hour later, 2 prompts appeared before him. Begin to consolidate the projection. Begin the transmission of the great Taoist insights. The spiritual energy within the Taoist field of the beginningless suddenly stopped, causing everyone in the dojo to open their eyes. Before Guan could think further, endless insights of the great Tao surged into his mind, plunging his consciousness into chaos. At the edge of the Taoist field of the beginningless, at the entrance of the dojo, stood a stone door built by an ex-in. Zia the Novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Outside the stone door was a dense fog, appearing very mysterious. A figure emerged from the thick fog and stepped through the stone door. It was Tian Hao. Tian Hao advanced with a dragon's stride and a tiger's pace, with 3 differently shaped long spears, each about 10 feet long, floating behind him in a fan formation. He wore a smug smile on his face, muttering to himself, "This time I will definitely surprise Master." However, no sooner had the words left his mouth than he suddenly stopped, furrowing his brow as he looked towards the distant mountains with a look of surprise and doubt in his eyes. Why isn't the spiritual energy in the dojo moving? There was also an uncomfortably erratic force. He immediately leaped up, transforming into a rainbow light that flew away, quickly vanishing over the other side of the mountains. After a while, everyone gathered by a small river, whispering among themselves as they watched Guan meditating on a rock across the river. Tian Hao was there too, looking at Guan with curiosity. This was the first time he had seen his master enter a state of sudden enlightenment. In his eyes, his master was already the most powerful being. Could he possibly have an epiphany in such a Tao practice? Could master be about to break through? Senior brothers, senior sisters, what realm has master reached? Has he obtained the Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal realm? Tian Hao couldn't help but ask. Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal was a realm he had heard about in the last few decades, belonging to a great cultivator from the Tao court, capable of moving mountains and overturning seas. No one answered him because the others did not know Guan's realm either. Blood Prison Great Saint scoffed, "Brat, you only need to know that Master is stronger than anyone you've ever met. Even those who created this world are far inferior to Master." Tian Hao, stirred by these words, inquired further, "Have you ever seen Master engage in a fight? Not just sparring." He was the top disciple of the Chengkuan sect, a leader of the younger generation, often going out on missions and establishing great merits for the Chengkuan sect. He had been through many life-and-death battles, and he was infatuated with that feeling. Fierce opponents indeed made for stronger challengers than those in sparring combat. LV Xian laughed and said, "I have, but no one could withstand even one move from your master." Ghost Mother of Ephemera added, "No matter how powerful, facing your master means meeting their end by a single sword strike." LV Xian grew enthusiastic and continued, "It's time for you lad to know about some of your master's past deeds." He began narrating stories from the Supreme Sect, and an Xan and Shenzhen who usually didn't chat with Tian Hao, occasionally chimed in, along with the Blood Prison Great Saint, thus unveiling the past of Guan. Even Jiang Shi and Xing Tian, Celestial Demon Child, Celestial Cyan Tian by Qin Chuan, and Ghost Mother of Ephemera learned about events they hadn't heard of before. From helping small sects establish the righteous Tao, to saving continents, oceans and even the world, all could feel Guan's heart turning towards profound goodness. After saving all living beings, Guan had chosen to leave the Supreme Sect, live in seclusion here, and had supported the Chengkuan sect, which only increased their admiration. The Chengkuan sect remains an orthodox Taoist sect to this day. Though occasionally committing wrongful acts, most disciples still act by the code of chivalry, and even the Tao court wouldn't easily declare war on an orthodox Taoist sect like the Chengkuan sect. Tian Hao listened intently, his mindset gradually changing. Although Guan had not taught him much directly since he was young, he had always admired his master, who had fostered him. In his youth, every act and word of Guan had inspired him. He wanted to become like Guan. Perhaps, I should not seek to become stronger just for the sake of being strong. Tian Hao watched Guan, who was still meditating across the river, and reflected silently. The others were still marveling at past events, which now seemed very distant, giving them an unreal feeling. Suddenly, Guan opened his eyes and the entire Taoist field of the beginningless returned to normal. Spiritual energy flowed again, and the path of cause and effect no longer ran wild. The first thing he saw upon opening his eyes was Tian Hao across the river. Master and disciple locked eyes, Tian Hao's gaze intense. When he saw his master's eyes open, his heart skipped a beat in fear. Guan narrowed his eyes and with just one look, he saw the entirety of Tian Hao's trillion-year lifespan. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 606 Tian Hao and Gu and the embodiments of beings from the 3,000 worlds all once pursued the path of cause and effect, exhausting their lifetimes of energy and time. Although Guan was unclear how long they had lived or what realm they had ultimately reached, their insights into the path of cause and effect, when gathered together, were incredibly vast. Guan looked at Tian Hao, whose future rapidly unfolded before his eyes. 200 million years. 300 million years. 500 million years. Suddenly, Tian Hao's billion-year lifespan was all within his sight. Guan saw countless destiny lines on him, among which one shone the brightest. That was the destiny undisturbed by the power of the current great worlds, a life path predestined by the heavens. Following this line, Guan could see all that would come to pass for him. Tian Hao would become the strongest fighter in the celestial spirit great world. He would travel the path of the great Tao, he would challenge other great thousand worlds, and he would even venture into realms above the great thousand worlds. CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This was the path of a legend and he had never known failure. Feeling Guan's gaze, Tian Hao was very nervous. He lowered his eyes, not daring to look back. The others also sensed a sharp aura emanating from Guan, and none dared to speak, thinking they might have been too noisy and disturbed him, causing his displeasure. Everyone was tense. It was their first time seeing Guan angry. Fortunately, it wasn't long before the chill on Guan's face dissipated. "Why are you all looking at me?" Guan asked with a smile. Seeing his familiar smile, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and followed suit, smiling. Senior Sister Anshin was the first to ask, "Master, did you just have a moment of sudden enlightenment?" Guan replied, an epiphany indeed. All right, disperse now. You don't expect me to discuss my insights into this realm with you, do you? Upon hearing this, everyone showed an embarrassed look. They dared not probe, especially since they didn't know what realm Guan was in. They paid their respects in turn and took their leave. However, Tian Hao stayed. He leaped over a stream and came to Guan's side, asking, "Master, the Tao Court is holding a grand event of peerless prodigies that claims to take place only once every 10,000 years. Do you think I should participate?" "I want to, but the elders in the sect fear I might encounter danger. The Tao Court is the common master of the world, they wouldn't do such a thing, right?" Many famous prodigies had trained at the Tao Court, and it hadn't schemed against them. Guan answered, "One must always guard against others. Your biggest problem now is that you haven't faced hardship or defeat. That's also a good thing. Your master hopes that you never face defeat." Tian Hao's eyes widened as he said loudly, "That's not true. I've only ever lost to you." "You brat, still talking about winning and losing with your master? Then how about you try losing to me?" "I was wrong, I was just spouting nonsense." Tian Hao quickly apologized after being glared at by Guan. After that, Guan asked about his experiences over the years, and he answered truthfully, his spirits high. Guan understood Tian Hao's thoughts. The kid had always been looking for an opportunity to spend quality time with him. Before coming of age, although both were in the dojo, Guan didn't accompany him in play the entire time. Of course, what the kid wanted most was Guan's praise. Yet Guan just wouldn't satisfy him. This kid is already proud enough, he must leave some room for improvement, lest his tail lift up to the sky. While chatting, Tian Hao leaned against the rock, looking up at Guan. He did not sit beside Guan. He was indeed very conceited, but he was filled with reverence for Guan. He did not want to break that attitude, he hoped he would always revere his master so he would have a goal. So many seniors had been surpassed by him, making him feel that the path of immortal cultivation was very simple. Only when compared with his master did he feel motivated and full of anticipation. He hoped his master would always be stronger than him so that he wouldn't feel alone on the path of immortal cultivation. From Tianhao's words, Guan could feel his sense of belonging to the Chengkuan sect, and that his achievements had not led to any contempt for his own sect, which made Guan all the more satisfied with him. The sect hierarch of the Chengkuan sect, Yi Qingshan, was the reincarnation of his disciple Lu Jiujia. Guan had his reasons for letting them establish karma, but if the Chengkuan sect were to stray from the right path, he would not blindly support it. Whether the heavenly Tao or the great Tao should be sentimental, Guan didn't know. He only knew he wanted to follow a path of sentiment. He didn't want to set too many rules and restrictions for himself. He would simply follow his heart. If he wanted to pity all living beings, then he would pity them. If he didn't want to get close to someone, he would keep his distance. The greatest kindness he could offer to all things was not to kill indiscriminately. By the way, Master, they told me a lot about your past. Out of the many disciples you've taken, who is your favorite? Tianhao suddenly asked out of curiosity. Guan glanced at him and he quickly added, other than me. You wish, how could it possibly be you? Guan replied, a little irritated. Tianhao didn't feel embarrassed, just chuckled. Guan then said, my favorite disciple should be Hao. He was the first disciple I truly took to heart to teach and also the first I adopted. He is just like you, born with the strongest talent. Tianhao's eyes lit up and he asked, is that senior sister Angxin's brother? He had heard Hao's name before, but the people in the dojo did not talk much about him as if they were apprehensive. They come from the same village. Guan began to recount Hao's life. Tianhao listened intently. This time, Guan spoke at length, which made Tianhao feel very happy, feeling closer to his master. They talked until dusk. The sky was streaked with crimson, and the celestial vault was desolately beautiful. After hearing Hao's life story, Tianhao's mood was hard to calm for a long time. Guan looked at Tianhao and asked, where do you think you are better than Hao, and where do you fall short? Tianhao pondered and said, I wouldn't abandon my kin like he did, but I don't seem to have his resolve either. He could sacrifice himself for the people of the world, but I can't do it. I would only give my all for the Chengkuan sect. Guan smiled, not judging Tianhao's thoughts. He looked up into the twilight sky and said softly, Hao, I gave you the name Hao indeed because of Hao. I hoped you would go further than he did. As your teacher, I won't demand anything specific from you. You may choose not to sacrifice yourself for all living beings, but never, by virtue of your own strength, wantonly bully the weak. You must realize that no one can stay strong forever. Tianhao smiled and said, don't worry, master. If you inquire at the Chengkuan sect, you will find out I never bully others. I only uphold justice. As he spoke, he raised his right hand, used his palm as a sword, and made a few gestures in the air. Only in front of Guan and the ghost mother of ephemera did he show his childlike side. To others, he was the proud, reticent senior disciple of the Chengkuan sect. Guan watched him and asked with a smile, do you know how vast outer heaven is? How many worlds like the celestial spirit great world are there? Tianhao's interest piqued. He eagerly asked how large and how many great worlds there were. Guan began to tell him about the existence of other great thousand worlds, as well as the most talented and fortuitous prodigies of various great worlds, which aroused his passion, his eyes brimming with fighting spirit. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 607, The Great Cause and Effect Steel, The Path of Power. After talking with his master for a day, Tianhao had gained a greater knowledge and developed an even bigger longing for immortal cultivation. Thereafter he went to the Tao court with a heart full of fighting spirit. Dozens of years later, Tianhao's reputation spread throughout all the overlord-level forces in the world, and any cultivator who wasn't in some remote area had heard of his name. At the grand gathering of the ages, he overwhelmed the heroes of the world and became the unrivaled #1 talent of all time. The zenith of acclaim spurred Tianhao to cultivate even harder, and every breakthrough upon his return from the Tao court caused tremors across the world. Time flew by. 20,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world presented a new pattern, and although the Tao court remained the most powerful sect, many strong Taoist lineages had emerged. If they combined forces, they had the power to overturn the Tao court. The self-proclaimed righteous Tao court never initiated war against sects or imperial dynasties, so the human world remained at peace, though only relatively peaceful from a macrocosmic perspective of heaven and earth. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, the lowest cultivation level had already reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. LV Xian and Xian, blood prison great saint, and celestial demon child had all become carefree primordial immortals. As for Tianhao, he had reached the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, and moreover he was at the 9th floor of that cultivation level. Any talent paled in comparison to him, and coupled with the 3 Dao treasures gifted to him by Guan, nobody could challenge him below the realm of Taoist Zhangzizai immortal. Those 3 Dao treasures were 3 long spears, named Divine Punishment, Celestial Punishment and Immortal Punishment, each containing different powers of the Great Tao. Regarding Guan's favoritism towards Tianhao, the other disciples in the dojo had no objections. They wholeheartedly acknowledged Tianhao's talent. Even the blood prison great saint could do nothing but admire him. As 20,000 years had gone by, Tianhao was now someone they all aspired to chase after. Beneath the starry sky, atop a massive mountain peak, there sat a serene palace. Within the palace, Ji Xiaoyu was meditating on a jade platform, surrounded by wisps of gray-tinged energy, a manifestation of the power of the great Tao. A figure appeared atop the palace. It was the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor. The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor bowed deeply and, looking up at Ji Xiaoyu, spoke, "Your Majesty, Tianhao, known as the #1 talent of the world, has come to the Yin-Yang immortal domain. He has stepped into our territory seeking the Yin-Yang rebirth flower. He seems determined to obtain it, and with the 3 ultimate treasures in his grasp, each possessing power not inferior to heaven and earth ultimate treasures, our people cannot stop him." As he mentioned Tianhao, his expression was incredibly complicated. 20,000 years ago, he had heard rumors of a peerlessly gifted talent born in the central area of the great world. He thought those rumors were exaggerated, but having now encountered Tianhao, he realized they were no exaggeration. In fact, they might have even underestimated him. Compared to Tianhao's talent for cultivation, his talent for battle was even more prodigious. Sir the Nell Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Ji Xiaoyu slowly opened her eyes, overlooking the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor, and asked, "You mentioned earlier he came from the Chengkuan sect. What is the background of this Chengkuan sect?" The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor answered, "Strangely enough, the Chengkuan sect lacks any great power but has nurtured such an extraordinary talent. Oh, I've also heard there is an immortal protecting the sacred land of the Chengkuan sect, guarding only their homeland. I'm not sure if that's true." Hearing this, a flicker of intrigue crossed Ji Xiaoyu's eyes. She was silent for a moment, then said, "Let him advance. Allow him to reach the other domains, and there's no need to inform the other 3 emperors." The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor was surprised but asked no further questions, promptly taking his leave. Ji Xiaoyu gazed out at the starry sky, murmuring to herself, "Is it you, Tianhao, and how you truly are formidable, always able to cultivate peerlessly distinguished talents." As she calculated with her fingers, her expression grew increasingly complex. Tianhao's rate of cultivation was simply too mesmerizing, making her feel as if all past distinguished talents were inconsequential. At this rate, in less than 1,000,000 years, Tianhao would become the foremost figure of this era. Perhaps even the legendary Xingtian of the past would be but a stepping stone for him. Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath, her gaze towards the starry sky gradually firming. Perhaps, it was truly time for her to take that step. In the early morning, Guan was accompanying Shenzhen in painting, next to a waterfall by a mountain with beautiful scenery. Shenzhen was painting a celestial spirit god vanquishing demons, while Guan painted Ji Xiaoyu meditating. Shenzhen glanced at Guan and scoffed, "It seems you really miss your 3rd Mississippi. Why don't you go find her in reincarnation?" Guan answered, "She is not in the cycle of reincarnation." Shenzhen showed no interest in Ji Xiaoyu. Seeing Guan's response, she did not press further and instead turned to ask, "Look at my painting, does it capture the likeness of the fairy?" Her understanding of the path of cause and effect was growing stronger. Even though her cultivation level was much lower than that of the celestial spirit god, she was able to depict the celestial spirit god's past without him noticing. Guan glanced at her painting and said, "Not bad, but isn't it rather uninteresting to only probe into his past? This process allows me to deepen my understanding of the great Tao. Besides, what I can see is far from boring," Shenzhen said proudly. The celestial spirit god was, in her view, second only to Guan. Unable to depict Guan, she could only paint the celestial spirit god. Guan spoke with a profound tone, "Perhaps you should create a divine skill, a skill that only you can wield." Divine skills? Shenzhen pondered thoughtfully. Her cultivation level was also that of a wandering immortal, and that was even without putting much effort into her immortal cultivation, so she grew increasingly confident, even believing that she would eventually surpass Tianhao. Although Guan did not think she could catch up to Tianhao, her potential indeed seemed limitless. This was not solely due to the power of cause and effect from Fairy Yaoxian, but also the great cause and effect steel used by the Emperor of Eternal Life. The great cause and effect steel stood within the river of cause and effect, a manifestation of the great Tao itself, eternally indestructible within the great Tao. The existence of the great cause and effect steel was unimaginable. With the Emperor of Eternal Lives' sacrifice, some of the steel's power had spread to Shenzhen. As she lived longer, this power became ever stronger. Guan could see through everyone's future, but Shenzhen's future was becoming increasingly obscured in his eyes, a power dissolving her cause and effect, which made him have greater expectations for her. While Shenzhen was lost in thought, Guan contemplated his own Tao. He felt it was necessary to focus on developing a second great Tao. Relying on the Taoist dominator skill, Guan had begun to glimpse the 3,000 great Tao, but that was just understanding, not mastery. He wanted to master a formidable great Tao, not as unfathomable as cause and effect, fate or reincarnation, but rather pure strength. Like the bright sun in the sky, glorious, upright, with awe-inspiring might. The 3,000 great Tao was just a collective term. The actual number of Tao was uncertain, with Guan having glimpsed more than 3,000. He wished to choose the most vigorous among these Tao. Pure strength. After much contemplation, Guan decided on the path of power. The path of power wasn't simply about physical strength but represented all types of power at their peak. That was the path of power. To prove the Tao with power meant to prove it with great magical power, with chi power. The path of power was ubiquitous. All beings that possessed strength that could cultivate mana, demonic power, or any other power-focused cultivation, existed because of the path of power. Guan immediately employed the lifespan projection and chose the path of power. Still consuming 1 trillion years of lifespan, various prompts wildly popped up before him. But this time was different. He suddenly saw the celestial spirit great world. Almost instantly he sensed some changes in the celestial spirit great world. It seemed an extra person had appeared. Guan calculated with his fingers, his expression growing even more peculiar. He couldn't calculate the projected being, but he did foresee Tianhao encountering a formidable opponent in the yin-yang immortal domain, marking the first time Tianhao had failed to conquer a being of the same realm. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 608. Manipulating Fate. Tianhao couldn't defeat the existence that appeared blurred in the causality deduction, but Guan could see it through his heart eye. The appearance of that being was different from his, but his intuition told him that this was his projected self. After escaping Tianhao, the projected self turned around and jumped into the sea of reincarnation in the yin-yang immortal domain, entered reincarnation, and disappeared from sight. Start retracting the projected self. Start inheriting the great Tao insights. 2 prompts popped up, interrupting Guan's thoughts. He vanished from his spot and appeared at the edge of the dojo, starting to inherit the great Tao insights. It wasn't long before a disturbance occurred within the Taoist field of the beginningless, alarming everyone. Since such an event had occurred before, the dojo disciples merely glanced in the direction of Guan and then continued to cultivate, not bothering Guan. Under the starry sky, clad in golden robes, Tianhao stood by the sea, staring at the dark waves ahead, his brow furrowed in thought. A figure descended from the sky and landed beside him. It was the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor. The two had had many dealings and shared a decent camaraderie. "Are you still thinking about that person?" the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor asked. Tianhao took a deep breath, looked ahead and said, "Yes, I felt pressure from someone of the same realm for the first time." The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor consoled, "Even if it's the same realm, he must be much older than you and he didn't defeat you, so why bother?" In his opinion, Tianhao already had the greatest talent. He had witnessed the previous battle. The opponent was indeed fearsome, but Tianhao didn't lose. It was just hard to determine who was better. Their encounter made the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor question life. The battle of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma had even a divine thought true immortal like him terrified. Had this genius from the old era been outclassed? He felt that Tianhao would surpass him sooner rather than later, and much quicker than he had anticipated. "I can't let it go, I feel excited." In recalling his combat techniques. He didn't use many divine skills or spells, he simply countered me with pure mana and chi power, truly a display of one force breaks 10,000 laws. Tianhao sincerely remarked, feeling very exhilarated. Indeed, Master was right, Never underestimate the world, you never know where a strong contender with great fortune might emerge. His talent might truly be the best, but he had lived too short a life and still needed to continuously strengthen his Taoist techniques. Hearing Tian Hao's words, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor opened his mouth, not knowing what to say, unable to grasp Tian Hao's thoughts. What are your plans next? You got what you wanted? The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor asked. Facing a genius like Tian Hao, he chose to make a strong connection, having a premonition that this connection might save his life one day. Tian Hao withdrew his gaze, looked at the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor and smiled, "I'm planning to go back. Not being able to sweep through the same realm shows that my combat ability is not enough. I will go into seclusion to cultivate for a while before venturing out again. If you ever come to the Nine Spirit Continent, seek me out. I won't let you down." The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor showed a smile. Getting such a promise from Tian Hao was all he wanted. It at least proved that Tian Hao was still willing to maintain their friendship. Then Tian Hao bowed to the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor and transformed into a beam of extreme light, leaping up and quickly vanishing into the horizon. The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor watched his departing figure, a look of envy on his face. Living for so many years, he had never been as free as Tian Hao. A cultivator should be like this, roaming the heavens and earth, unbound. Immediately after, the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor let out a self-deprecating laugh. The reason he was bound by the Yin-Yang Immortal Domain was not because of his talent, but because he needed the power of the Immortal Domain to gather cultivation resources. He used to think his cultivation speed was fast, but now it felt slow. He earnestly wanted to reach the free Immortal Realm. He now harbored a ridiculous guess. He felt that Tian Hao might reach the free Immortal Realm faster than him. After a while, a figure landed beside the Sun and Moon Nether Emperor, a mysterious cultivator enveloped in black mist, who said in a deep voice, "Emperor, His Majesty has left. She said she would head to outer heaven to pursue the great Tao, leaving you to lead the reincarnation domain." The Sun and Moon Nether Emperor's thoughts were interrupted, and upon hearing this, he couldn't help but be astonished. Go to outer heaven to pursue the great Tao? Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless. Guan opened his eyes, his gaze filled with a forceful presence. He had completed inheriting the 3000's projected selves insights on the path of power. He underwent a transformation with his chi power and mana rapidly strengthening, a strengthening that required no absorption of spiritual energy but was aided by the invisible and colorless path of power. He felt that the projected self that had entered reincarnation had disappeared, as if it had never existed. This allowed him to completely let go. Although there were many projected selves, indeed they left no trace behind. He carefully sensed the path of power. Just pondering the path of power made his mana surge within the heaven-opening Daluo Immortal Realm, and his strength progressed leaps and bounds. Pure mana enhancement made him feel incredibly wonderful, and this time his choice was the right one. The sun set and the moon rose. Days passed swiftly. 10 days later, Guan stood up. He first went to various places to pick mature medicinal herbs, and only after gathering them did he return to Shenzhen's side. Shenzhen had painted a new picture, depicting a scene where the celestial spirit god knelt before an immortal. This immortal was an old Taoist, with an aura of immortal Tao and bones of divinity, and his back was bathed in rosy light. In front of him, the celestial spirit god lacked its usual overwhelming might. Guan raised an eyebrow. Shenzhen had already been able to excavate his causality through the celestial spirit god. Don't paint recklessly, be careful not to provoke an existence even I can't withstand, Guan spoke. Shenzhen snapped back to reality, and when she saw clearly what she had painted, her face turned pale, and she immediately raised her hand, her fingers igniting, rapidly burning the scroll. After doing all this, she breathed a sigh of relief. She turned her head towards Guan, embarrassingly said, "I was too engrossed earlier, it wasn't intentional." She also felt a sense of fear. The celestial spirit god was already so powerful. How horrifying must an existence be that could make the celestial spirit god kneel? The thought that she might have brought about a catastrophe for Guan made her uneasy, her eyes filled with guilt. Guan was just trying to scare her. He trusted his own Taoist field. If his Taoist field weren't strong enough, Shenzhen had already provoked that old immortal. With his Tao practice far surpassing the celestial spirit god, he would just need a thought to descend into the celestial spirit great world. In the future, think about yourself. Your talent might hide unimaginable great cause and effect, Guan said with a smile. The path of power had let his strength leap forward, and he also planned to prepare for a breakthrough. It was time to think of a way to save Fairy Yao Xian. This was the obsession of the Emperor of Eternal Life, and as the original, Guan had to help him. Speaking of obsessions linked to the reincarnation body, Lu Han had one too. His son Lu Qiuxian. The obsession of the Black Profound Emperor was his senior sister, Fairy Bai Xian. Guan didn't want to create too deep a cause and effect with these people. The Long family was already troublesome enough, but he could secretly aid them. Consider it as repaying them for their lifelong companionship. My great cause and effect? Xinjun fell into deep thought. Seeing her lose herself once again, Guan shook his head in amusement. It wasn't necessarily good to be too easily enlightened. Guan sat down and continued painting. He felt that Ji Xiaoyu had left the celestial spirit great world, but he did not stop his brush. He had long seen Ji Xiaoyu's future. After many trials and tribulations, Ji Xiaoyu would descend into other great thousand worlds, thus welcoming more opportunities. Her choice was right, she would go further in the future. Unfortunately, it was just further. Guan had seen the end of her life, she would die in a struggle. He was not worried. When the time came he would act. Peering into destiny did not make Guan feel desolate towards everything, because he was not only able to peer but also to change and even manipulate. Beings of lower realms could not detect this manipulation and would only sink in fate. One stick of incense later, Guan completed his painting of Ji Xiaoyu. He saw Xinjun still in a self-forgetting state, so he couldn't help but turn his gaze towards other worlds. Zhang Buku was temporarily safe, and in the long years to come, his power would grow continuously until he became the demon emperor of the Tai's great world. Compared to him, Guan was more concerned about another person. That was Zhu Xi, the former lord of the Holy Court, Saint Heaven reincarnation. After being sent out of the celestial spirit great world by the immortal seeker, she came to a domain not part of the great thousand worlds to make her way, a place that also had heaven and earth, but without the rules of the great world. Guan had only recently in the last 10,000 years caught track of Zhu Xi. At this moment she was making her way through an ancient secret realm, said to be the dojo of a Taoist emperor, filled with mechanisms and its own world. Sir the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. This Taoist emperor made Guan feel familiar. Emperor Ziwei. This emperor had appeared in the life of the Black Profound Emperor and was the strongest in talent he had ever encountered. Now recalling it, Guan felt that this Emperor Ziwei was very extraordinary. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 609, Stealing Heaven. Immortal Sect and Emperor Ziwei. Under the Black Night, ghostly figures in white robes drifted across the hills and fields, their forms ethereal like phantoms making not a sound. Amidst the forest, Zhu Xi took in this spectacle, her eyebrows tightly furrowed. She slowly retreated into the shadows. She turned around and walked towards the deeper parts of the forest. Moonlight filtered through the gaps between the leaves, illuminating her figure draped in a deep purple long garment, her hair pinned atop her head, exuding an air of authority and spirit. Having left the celestial spirit great world tens of thousands of years ago, her experiences had already transformed her. She approached a stone statue in the forest, her hand gently caressing the statue while she muttered an enigmatic and complex incantation. Moments later, a luminescent green figure flew out from within the statue, an old crone in a Taoist robe, akin to a soul body, her face covered in black spots, especially frightening to behold. She looked at Zhu Xi, chuckling, "Are you at a loss?" Zhu Xi stepped back and asked, "Speak then, how shall we cooperate and what must I give?" The old crone peered at Zhu Xi, her face full of mockery. "It's simple, let me take temporary possession of you, I will leave your body once we are out." Upon hearing this, Zhu's eyes frown deepened. Each of those lost souls surpasses you in cultivation level, and they simply cannot step into this forest. Unless you wish to stay here forever, this is your only chance as long as you trust me, the old crone persisted, her gaze burning into Zhu Xi. She paused, then added, "Don't forget, you would already be dead without me." Zhu's eyes flickered, caught in indecision. For a long time, Zhu Xi looked up at the old woman and said, "I can agree to your terms, now tell me your name and the origins of this Taoist field." The old crone revealed a smile, "I am called the Stealing Mystery Heavenly Maiden. This Taoist field was left by Emperor Ziwei. He set this place as a seal, and the most terrifying thing here isn't the lost souls, he left behind an avatar here, intended for revival as I see it." Emperor Ziwei? Zhu Xi silently noted down the name, then said, "Let's begin then." The Stealing Mystery Heavenly Maiden asked with a smirk, "Do you need my help to snatch some opportunities? I know where the good treasures are hidden." Zhu Xi shook her head, No need, let's just get out of here soon. The corners of the stealing mystery heavenly maiden's mouth curled up, and then she burrowed into Zhu Zai's body. Instantly, the stone statue burst with green light, swiftly enveloping her. Zhu Shi closed her eyes, welcoming all that was happening. Guan, in the Taoist field of the beginningless far away, raised his eyebrows slightly. This stealing mystery heavenly maiden came from the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. The Stealing Heaven Immortal sect belonged to the Emperor of Eternal Life. Although he was not the founder, the Emperor of Eternal Life had left his mark within the karma and destiny of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. Guan's ability to cultivate the Immortal Emperor's eye was due to the inheritance left by a former sect hierarch of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect. The Immortal Emperor's eye had boundless mystical uses, and at the very least, his Immortal Emperor's eye divine power could reverse everything. Guan could feel that a part of Stealing Mystery Heavenly Maiden's karma belonged to the Emperor of Eternal Life. Before leaving the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect, the Emperor of Eternal Life left behind many inheritances, and Stealing Mystery Heavenly Maiden had received one. Could it be that all the lost souls in this Taoist field were from the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect? And there was no knowledge if the profound demon emperor was still safe? For that existence who had always aided the Emperor of Eternal Life, Guan had a profound impression. The profound demon emperor could be said to be the most loyal disciple of the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect, spending his whole life trying to restore it. Speaking of which, since the Stealing Heaven Immortal sect defended the Celestial Court, they could only flee all over, and now being suppressed here by Emperor Ziwei, could it be the will of the Celestial Court? Guan remembered Emperor Ziwei bore an uncanny resemblance to Emperor Ziwei. Emperor Ziwei was the master of the Immortal Palace when the Celestial Spirit God and the Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable met, a god of the Celestial Court. CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan continued to observe Zhu Zai's actions. In his memory, Zhu Shi was very cautious, and he didn't think she would normally leave her destiny in the hands of others. After being possessed by the Stealing Mystery Heavenly Maiden, Zhu Shi utilized a unique secret technique to quietly leave the forest. Along the way she encountered many lost souls, all very powerful, some even of the golden immortal rank, but none noticed her. In the blink of an eye, time shifted to noon the next day and Shenzhen finally woke up. Guan stood up, not bothering to ask what she had realized but left after dropping these words, "Don't be so fixated all the time. Sometimes taking a break for a while can be more helpful." By the time Shenzhen came to her senses she could no longer see his figure. "Indeed, I seem to have become quite obsessed lately, always trying to pursue enlightenment. It appears I've been stimulated by that kid Tian Hao," Shenzhen murmured to herself as she stood up to tidy up the easel. Her mood was still fairly good. Although she hadn't made any breakthroughs, she had all the time in the world to comprehend it. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, she never had to worry about danger and felt as if time was extraordinarily lengthy. As she was wondering whether to write a book or go shopping at the Chengkuan sect, Zhu Shi was in the midst of a life-and-death battle. Suspended in the cosmic void, Zhu Shi stood with a long sword in her hand, her expression blank as she stared at the Stealing Heaven's profound mystery in front of her. The profound mystery had become younger than before, her features bewitchingly beautiful, with only a few dark spots remaining on her face. She glared at Zhu Shi and asked through gritted teeth, "What cultivation technique did you practice? How did it protect your divine soul?" Zhu Shi raised her sword toward her and said, "The Taoist unique venerates skill. Have you ever heard of it?" The color drained from Stealing Heaven's profound mystery's face. In an instant the void around them changed color, and twisting green light appeared in every direction, making the void seem like an illusion realm. "Whose disciple are you from the Celestial Court?" Stealing Heaven's profound mystery asked in a deep voice, her eyes filled with hatred. Zhu Shi snorted coldly, "I have nothing to do with the Celestial Court. I'm just an ordinary person from a mortal realm. If you insist on taking over my flesh, then let's fight to the death. May it be your soul scattering or my body and Tao being annihilated, it's all a matter of skill." When she spoke these words, she exuded the aura of the Holy Court's Xingtian, an aura cultivated from being unmatched for years, fearless in the face of anything. Stealing Heaven's profound mystery suddenly opened her arms, and in an instant numerous figures appeared amidst the twisting green light, like countless arrows raining down on Zhu Shi. Before Zhu Shi could confront these figures, a green beam of light descended from the sky, enveloping her. Everything happened too rapidly, so fast that Zhu Shi couldn't dodge in time. "Do you dare to be so audacious in front of me?" Stealing Heaven's profound mystery said with scorn. The figures that moved towards Zhu Shi quickly surrounded the green light pole, forming layers upon layers in an arrangement resembling a formation. Upon closer inspection, these figures greatly resembled the lost souls from the secret realm she had encountered before. Zhu Shi was unable to move, feeling as if she was being consumed by countless ants. She didn't despair. Jin Qi started to emanate from her body, circling around her. Gradually, golden lines appeared on her forehead, interwoven, resembling a golden lotus blooming upon her brow. Stealing heaven's profound mysteries, pupils dilated suddenly. Just as she was about to speak, the golden lotus on Zhu Zai's forehead burst forth with dazzling golden light, piercing the green light and annihilating the soul shadows along its path. In a flash, stealing heaven's profound mystery dodged to the side, appearing in another location. Just as she appeared, she fixed her gaze and saw that Zhu Zai's figure was no longer inside the formation she had created. Boom! A sword light suddenly attacked, and Zhu Shi appeared out of nowhere behind her, severing her head with a single strike. The sword light extended infinitely after the cut, eliminating the twisting green light in the void and returning everything to darkness. Stealing heaven's profound mysteries had spun in the void, locking eyes with Zhu Zai's sword-wielding figure. You, stealing heaven's profound mystery, was furious, her alluring face contorting with rage. Just as she attempted to retaliate, a hand suddenly grabbed her head, rendering her motionless. Her eyes widened as she cried out, "Who?" Zhu Shi stopped, her eyes filled with dread as she saw the figure gripping stealing heaven's profound mystery's head. It was a man dressed in a dragon-patterned purple robe, wearing an imperial crown with hanging beads, his garments exquisite, and behind him 18 purple-scaled flood dragons twisted in the air, his face utterly indifferent. Emperor Ziwei. How is this possible? You, stealing heaven's profound mystery, cried out in shock, but before she could finish, Emperor Ziwei crushed her soul head, and her soul body dissipated with it, gone without a trace. After doing all this, Emperor Ziwei's indifferent gaze fell upon Zhu Shi, causing her to shudder in fear. She was horrified to realize she could find no escape, her instinct telling her that if she dared move, she would be immediately annihilated. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 610. Immortal Emperor's Eye Battles. Emperor Ziwei stared at Zhu Shi, not uttering a word. His gaze was so indifferent as the murky void fell silent, a suffocating atmosphere spreading to its extremities. Zhu Shi felt the aura of the thief of the profound mystique completely vanish, and her heart rose to her throat. Before her death, the thief of the profound mystique had revealed this person's true identity. Emperor Ziwei, the master of that terrifying dojo from earlier. She knew what being called an emperor represented. She was chasing that very path, but the journey to become a Taoist emperor was incredibly arduous. Those who could claim the title were all possessed of unsurpassed destiny and peerless talent. A fully accomplished Taoist emperor was even more terrifying, possessing the ability to not fear the immortal gods. Who taught you the Taoist unique venerate skill? Asked Emperor Ziwei, his voice icy cold, an endless tide of killing intent overwhelming Zhu Shi. Without control, Zhu Shi blurted out 4 words, "Immortal Seeker." Having spoken, her heart was thrown into turmoil. What was going on? Why couldn't she restrain herself from speaking the truth? Emperor Ziwei narrowed his eyes, murmuring to himself, "It's him," as unsettled as ever. He continued asking Zhu Shi, "Besides him, do you have another master? What is his name?" He could sense that the Immortal Seeker's influence on Zhu Shi wasn't significant, and Zhu Shi was burdened with even greater karma. Zhu Zai's complexion changed dramatically. She opened her mouth, trying with all her might to suppress the urge to speak, but she couldn't hold it back. "Yes, he is Gu." Zhu Zai's voice suddenly stopped as she felt the bindings around her disappear. She reacted swiftly, turning to flee. Her speed was incredible, covering an immense distance in the blink of an eye. However, no matter where she flew in the void, the surroundings looked extremely similar, as if she hadn't moved at all. Emperor Ziwei didn't chase after Zhu Shi but frowned in the direction of her escape. He lifted his right hand, his robe billowing, and the entire void changed color. Zhu Shi, fleeing at full speed, seemed to sense something. She turned her head, her eyes widening in shock. Behind her in the void emerged 18 enormous draconic shadows, as if occupying the whole space, full of visual impact. They writhed freely, bearing fangs and claws, appearing shockingly terrifying. Zhu Shi stopped, not because she didn't want to escape, but because the space around her suddenly solidified, rendering her unable to move. What was most terrifying was an invisible force compelling her to turn around, as if a hand was seizing her, spinning her back. The Zhu Shi of the profound Yuan-free immortal realm had no way to resist this power. Despair filled her eyes. The gap was too great, so vast she couldn't use any secret techniques or divine skills. As the 18 dreadful draconic shadows closed in, Zhu Shi wanted to end her own life but found she was unable to do so. "Since you want to protect her, why not show yourself?" spoke Emperor Ziwei, causing Zhu Shi to be astonished. Someone was protecting her? Was it possible that her earlier escape wasn't because Emperor Ziwei was distracted, but that another force was secretly aiding her? She struggled to turn her head to see what lay behind her. In the corner of her eye, the void remained pitch black like the abyss, invisible to sight. The more this was true, the more uneasy Zhu Shi became. She was very clear about her own past. What possible backing could she have that could contend with Emperor Ziwei? She felt it was more likely that another terrifying being was maneuvering her. Having left the celestial spirit great world for tens of thousands of years, she indeed had been involved in many karmic consequences which she didn't fully understand. Zhu Shi looked back at Emperor Ziwei, her gaze no longer filled with despair but returning to her usual calmness. If worst came to worst, she would die. Immortal Emperor's Eye? Truly a rarity, no wonder you want to protect her. Emperor Ziwei's voice rang out once again, his voice becoming even colder, and the 18 enormous dragon shadows that twisted at will also stopped in their tracks. Hearing this, Zhu Shi turned her head to look again, and this time, her pupils involuntarily dilated. She saw a pair of eyes. A pair of spectacular and terrifying eyes, the visual impact of which was no less than that of Emperor Ziwei's 18 dragon shadows. In these eyes shone dark purple pupils, eerie and mysterious. The eyes were so vast, like the eyes of the universe, that they made Nzin's soul tremble. What kind of eyes were these? Zhu Shi could not imagine the realm of the owner of these eyes. Although this mortal body isn't very powerful, if you want to save her from my grasp, let's see just how capable you are? Emperor Ziwei's voice came from the depths of the void, and as his words ended, the 18 giant dragon shadows moved. They moved like thunder, and the entire void seemed to shatter all at once. The Tao rules stirred up a strong wind that rushed at Zhu Shi, forcing her to close her eyes instinctively, her body and mind in extreme discomfort. At this moment she felt like a drowning mortal, in pain, suffering, terrified, yet powerless, only able to endure this kind of torture. Fortunately, the torture came suddenly and left just as quickly. The wild force assaulting Zhu Shi disappeared in an instant, and she then felt a warm power enveloping her. Snap! Her shoulder was suddenly patted, startling her into opening her eyes. A new light shone in her eyes as she saw the once invincible dragon shadows starting to obliterate as if being burned by an invisible fire. This scene filled her with surprise. She instinctively turned her head to look but saw no one else. The feeling of her shoulder being patted seemed to have been an illusion. However, those mysterious giant eyes known as the Immortal Emperor's eyes remained. They were so calm, silently watching Emperor Ziwei's dragon shadows become undone. Looking at the Immortal Emperor's eyes again, Zhu Shi unexpectedly felt a sense of familiarity. It seemed she had seen these eyes somewhere before. Wait, could it be? Zhu Zai's eyes widened with excitement, her body trembling uncontrollably. It was her mentor. Long ago in the celestial spirit great world, she had never been able to see through Guan's cultivation level. She had always thought her mentor came from another great thousand world, but she could never have imagined her mentor was so powerful and moreover, that he could come to rescue her. An immense surprise overwhelmed her, making her feel as though she was in a dream. Until the dragon shadows vanished, Emperor Ziwei's voice did not rise again. Zhu Shi didn't understand what had happened, but it was clear that her mentor had won. Run away, continue chasing the path of the great Tao. Guan's voice entered Zhu Zai's ears, rousing her, and she immediately flew towards the Immortal Emperor's eyes. Along the way, the view was dazzling, with star nebulae surging like dragons, the scenery before her eyes enchanting. Zhu Shi found that even flying at full speed, she still couldn't get close to the Immortal Emperor's eyes. The distance between them seemed eternally insurmountable. Sir the Oval Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. She didn't feel lost, instead she felt her mentor was guiding her. Looking at the majestic Immortal Emperor's eyes in the distance, Zhu Zai's eyes were filled with longing. How many years would she need to cultivate to reach such a realm? Meanwhile, far away at Human World Peak, Guan stood at the edge of a cliff, gazing at the horizon, his eyes reflecting the image of Zhu Shi. This time he had not personally intervened, but it was enough to deal with Emperor Ziwei. This Emperor Ziwei, although not the true form, possessed the cultivation level of the balancing heaven golden immortal realm perfection, even more powerful than the celestial spirit god. Regrettably, defeating Emperor Ziwei did not grant him lifespan, leading him to speculate more about Emperor Ziwei. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 611, Golden Extreme God Guan watched Zhu Shi leave through the void, using his own Tao intent to carve a path for her that crossed the universe. Although Zhu Shi had already reached the Xingtian tier before she paid homage to him as her mentor, they had, after all, spent many years together, and he wouldn't skimp on giving her a hand. Of course, the reason he dared to make a move was because he had no fear of Emperor Ziwei. Not just Emperor Ziwei, Guan also didn't sense any danger following the cause and effect linked to Emperor Ziwei. Naturally, he still held the celestial court in awe and thus did not directly confront Emperor Ziwei. His fate pen and infinite sword book could be used to strike enemies from afar, and over tens of thousands of years, apart from refining Tao treasures, he had been continuously strengthening both the fate pen and the infinite sword book. Some things need not be used but cannot be too weak. In his unmatched years, Guan enjoyed conjuring enemies for himself. He would even imagine facing the entire celestial court. A figure arrived beside Guan. It was Zhu Xinglan, his foremost disciple from the main peak of Human World Peak. Tens of thousands of years might seem long to mortals, but for disciples of a major sect like the Human World Peak, it wasn't considered very long. Over these years, Zhu Xinglan maintained utmost respect for Guan and was very organized in handling matters, so Guan would, from time to time, give him some guidance. However, the two were not in a true mentor-disciple relationship, and Guan didn't truly wish to take him as a disciple. Master, Tao Court has invited Human World Peak for a second discourse on the Tao, and the main peak would like you to attend as well, Zhu Xinglan said respectfully. Guan had always maintained the cultivation level of the first tier of Human World Peak. Not only did he hold a high position and wield significant power, but heaven-defining peak had also become the second most important peak after the main peak. I need to travel and see the world. When the time comes, we'll see. I might as well head towards Tao Court. If I can make it, then that's good. If not, they won't miss my presence, Guan casually replied. Zhu Xinglan smiled helplessly but dared not insist further. After all these years, Guan was always like this, free from any mercenary interests. He figured it out. Guan's choice to join Human World Peak was likely due to Baizia's invitation, casually accepted in his laid-back manner. Zhu Xinglan began to speak of other matters. The current era teemed with emerging prodigies, with ancient great cultivators unable to overshadow the luster of the younger generation. As each peerless prodigy rose, various myths emerged as if those peerless figures were immortal gods descending from the celestial court. Take Tian Hao as an example. The followers of the heavenly Tao claimed he was the reincarnation of profound star immortal monarch, the fiercest immortal in the mortal world on a trial. Zhu Xinglan too longed for the elegance of those peerless prodigies. In recent millennia, he had been actively searching for unparalleled talents for heaven-defining peak. Unfortunately, he found many talented individuals, but none could compare with the first-rate talents of the world. Guan merely listened, not really interested in cultivating peerless prodigies for Human World Peak. Once Zhu Shi was completely safe, he retracted his thoughts and headed down the mountain, with Zhu Xinglan keeping him company, eager to chat more. Even after tens of thousands of years, Zhu Xinglan still had no clue about Guan's origins. Before joining Human World Peak, from which sect had Guan come? This remained a curiosity for him. It was precisely this curiosity that made him look forward to Guan, hoping Guan would bring surprises to Human World Peak. Unfortunately, he was once again disappointed. After spending half a day at Human World Peak, Guan returned to Taoist Field of the Beginningless. Deep in the universe at the World Gate. Seated in meditation before the World Gate, the celestial spirit god suddenly opened his eyes and stood up, facing the gate. The World Gate burst forth with a blinding light, and an immense celestial Tao aura flowed forth like dispersing fog, mighty and overwhelming. Amidst the vast celestial Tao flame, a figure stepped out from within the World Gate. It was a towering figure clad in golden armor, his presence no weaker than the celestial spirit god. The armor he wore contrasted starkly with the celestial spirit god's silver armor, and the light emitted by both was equally brilliant, locked in a standoff. It's been a long time, celestial spirit god, the man in golden armor stopped in his tracks. He stood before the World Gate, looking at the celestial spirit god, and spoke with a voice like rolling thunder, causing the surrounding celestial Tao flame to tremble. The celestial spirit god wore an expressionless face and asked, "Golden Extreme God, why do you leave the great thousand world you guard to come to mine?" The Golden Extreme God lifted his right hand, revealing a golden token in his palm with 2 characters engraved. Profound residence. The gaze of the celestial spirit god remained unchanged as he continued, "The profound star immortal monarch is really quite audacious." The Golden Extreme God snorted coldly, "That's none of your concern, and even your former master Emperor Ziwei has no right to pry into the affairs of an immortal monarch." The celestial spirit god fell silent for a moment, then slowly turned aside to make way for the Golden Extreme God. The Golden Extreme God stepped forward, passing by the celestial spirit god, where gold and silver lights merged and flames surged. After walking 10 steps forward, the Golden Extreme God halted, slightly tilted his head, and glanced at the celestial spirit god from the corner of his eye. "The immortal monarch appreciates you. Back in the immortal palace of Emperor Ziwei, he saw that your potential was far beyond that of a celestial god, and you could go much farther. Once this matter is settled, I shall ascend to be a celestial Tao Star monarch, and you will still have a chance to consider it. When I return here, I expect an answer from you." CTH Novelier. N.T. website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. With that, he vanished into thin air, leaving behind only strands of golden flames drifting away. The celestial spirit god watched the direction the Golden Extreme God had left, a look of contempt flickering in his eyes, then returned to his meditation spot. Time flowed like a gentle stream, 100 years passed as swiftly as a single day. Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless. Midway up the mountain, Guan sat on a tree branch, giving an Xang guidance on cultivating divine skills, while his gaze lingered on the Golden Extreme God who had descended into the human world a century ago. This Golden Extreme God possessed the cultivation level of the late stage of the heaven-balancing Golden Immortal Realm and was on the cusp of breaking through to the Perfection Realm. After coming to the human world, the Golden Extreme God did not cause much disturbance. He wandered the human world, created secret realms, divine statues, and left behind legacies, even offering guidance to some beings with exceptional talent, causing these beings to acquire the celestial Tao destiny. Since the Golden Extreme God was not committing evil deeds, Guan naturally had no reason to oppose him. Perhaps there was some scheme of the celestial court behind this, but for these beings, it indeed represented a significant chance, even altering their lives. The profound star immortal monarch seemed to want to make the celestial spirit great world a world that worships him. The reason for not showing himself was probably fear of the celestial court's dissatisfaction. Do the immortal gods of the celestial court also need the masses to bolster their destiny? Guan found this quite amusing. The way of destiny has existed since ancient times. Gathering a group of people's fortunes together can foster a greater power of protection. Guan had seen into the Golden Extreme God's future. If he did not intervene, the Golden Extreme God, due to arrogance, would face the challenge of the champion of this realm. After being suppressed repeatedly, the Golden Extreme God would grow increasingly impatient, becoming brutal in his interactions, thus tarnishing his image in the hearts of all beings and affecting the profound star immortal monarch as well. In the end, the Golden Extreme God would be captured by a force from beyond the skies, serving as a resolution for the beings. The Golden Extreme God, Emperor Ziwei, profound star immortal monarch. Guan felt the mystique of the celestial court gradually revealing itself to him, yet he still couldn't fathom just how powerful the celestial court truly was. He sensed that celestial gods like the celestial spirit god and the Golden Extreme God must be at the lowest tier of the celestial Tao immortal position. For a universe like the celestial spirit great world to be controlled by the lowest tier immortal god, even if the 3,000 great worlds joined forces, they would pose no threat to the celestial court. Master, why is this calamity absolute I so difficult to practice? Is it part of the way of destiny or the way of cause and effect? And Zin's voice came from below, drawing Guan to turn and look at her. Guan replied, "It will become whichever great Tao you want it to be." What he taught was not only the calamity absolute I, but also the methods of cultivating the immortal emperor's I, to see whether an Xin could successfully practice them. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible.